Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So, as you all know, All Stars 8 started this week and 2 episodes were released, and usually I would do a recap of the Roscoe's viewing parties for these episodes. However, because the season premiere coincided with DragCon LA, Roscoe's did a live viewing party at DragCon instead. But Roscoe's doesn't seem to have uploaded the episode to their YouTube as of the moment, so I'm not sure if it was taped or not, and I unfortunately can't do a full recap. But I did see that a TikTok user under the name AstroBoyAble uploaded clips from the Roscoe's party that look like they were recorded on their phone, and I'll put the links in the description. So I thought I would do a quick video recapping what was said in these clips and also do a video about a little bit of additional drama that happened at DragCon LA. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Please note that because we're going to be talking about the outcome of certain episodes of Drag Race, there is a spoiler alert in place for this video. So, as I mentioned earlier, All Stars 8 had its premiere and 2 episodes were released at the same time. I did do a video explaining who the cast of All Stars 8 are, and I also did a video about some previous drama that the cast were involved in, so make sure you check out those 2 videos and I'll put links in the description. The first episode of All Stars 8 consisted of the queens doing 2 runways and then writing their own verses for a song in 2 groups. And the second episode consisted of the queens doing an acting challenge called RPD Live, which was a comedy sketch show in the style of Saturday Night Live, and everything was done in 1 take. And as I'm sure you're aware, Naysha Lopez is part of the cast of All Stars 8, and she's also a host at Roscoe's, and she's become known for spilling lots of tea at these viewing parties, so lots of people were interested to see what Naysha would say at the viewing parties. And Naysha was eliminated in the second episode of All Stars 8 and didn't seem to be very happy about her edit. In the first of these clips from the viewing party, Naysha spilled some tea about her confessionals, and Naysha said that she thought that James Mansfield should have been in the bottom instead of her. Naysha explained that when the queens are filming their confessionals, the producers ask you things like, how do you think this person did, or how did this person do? And Naysha said, quote, I'm going to tell you one thing that I'm mother effing honest. Naysha explained that she comes from a place of love and she's always going to give you her honest opinion about things. And Naysha said, quote, I'll tell you this, in every single one of my confessionals, they're like, how do you think this person did? It don't matter, James was the worst one. Naysha then said the reason why she said that is because, quote, you're not going to change the narrative on me. I saw what I saw, and I'm going to talk about what I saw, but what I saw doesn't match the narrative, which means they can't feature me. And Naysha then explained that because of the NDA, she has to be careful about what she says, but she said that, quote, my personal opinion, allegedly, I don't think they showed me because my opinions of certain people didn't align with the narrative that this mother effing show is trying to do. And it looks like fellow All Stars 8 contestant Heidi in Closet addressed this, and Heidi said in a now deleted tweet, no, James deserved her top placement the second week and Naysha shouldn't feel that way about her since she was the one mostly helping her. But anywho, if we were talking about the first episode, I would agree though. So we'll have to wait and see if there are any more developments that come out about this over the course of the competition. In the next clip, the queens were talking about the acting challenge in the second episode, which as I explained earlier was in the style of Saturday Night Live and everything was filmed in 1 take. However, Naysha implied as though some of the queens may have filmed their parts more than once. In the clip, host Patty Davis asked the queens how many times they filmed it, and all the queens said that they filmed it just 1 time. Naysha then said that they did do a run-through that wasn't taped, so they could get an idea of the teleprompter and where to look at the camera, and Naysha then said, quote, but it really was 1 take, except for some people. And when Naysha said that, people in the crowd started laughing, and Alexis Michelle, who was sat next to Naysha, laughed and put her arm on Naysha. The crowd then started chanting, say their names, several times. And Naysha smiled and eventually said, Candy Muse, and people in the audience started laughing. But Naysha laughed and said, quote, hold on, listen, we were backstage, right, and the rule was 1 mother effin' take, and we were in the back where they usually hide for the runway, and she did her part on the main stage. And Naysha then said she, and she was referring to Candy Muse because Candy was the narrator of the challenge and she did the opening monologue on the main stage, unlike the other contestants who filmed their parts on separate stages. Naysha then said, quote, and she started, and halfway through the monologue, they're like, oh wait, Candy, stop, let's try that again, etc, etc, and I thought it was just one take. But Naysha then clarified that regardless of how many times they did it, Candy is a, quote, sickening mother effer, and she had it right the first time. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, that B had an advantage, she did have more takes, however, the B is sickening, she turned it. So it sounds like Candy, for some reason, was asked to start her monologue again, but it's not clear why. However, from what Naysha said, it wasn't Candy's fault, and production, for some reason, asked her to do it again. So we'll have to wait and see if any more details emerge about why production asked Candy to do it again. In the next clip, Naysha was saying that it, quote, pees me off when the judges don't hold the girls to the same standard. Naysha said that she kept hearing the judges say things to one particular queen, like, quote, this outfit is so horrible, but I loved it. Naysha didn't say which queen she was referring to, but she said that the judges were not treating the queens the same, and Naysha made the point that all drag styles are valid, and some queens cannot do what other queens do, and vice versa. Batty Davis then asked Naysha if she thought that there was some favouritism, and Naysha talked about the fact that she had an NDA, but then she said that she absolutely thought there was favouritism. People in the audience then started shouting out at Naysha and said don't do it, and people told Naysha that she had a contract, but then other people were shouting things like say their names. Naysha then said, quote, I don't want to incriminate myself, but this is the thing. I had a conversation with a producer before this, and this producer, and he watches this so he's going to hear this, he literally told me, Naysha, think about your next job before you talk. Naysha then said, quote, I'm not going to let one of the producers threaten me with work. And Naysha said that she will be successful with or without Drag Race because she believes in her talent. But Naysha finished by saying that because she loves Drag Race and her fellow sisters, she's going to respect the show. And as we all know, Drag Race is a highly produced show and that's what she signed up for. And in the final clip, there was a jokey exchange between Naysha and Lala Ree. Naysha said that Lala was, quote, reading me real fierce, and then the camera panned to Lala who was laughing. Naysha explained that earlier in the day at DragCon, a, quote, lovely statuesque 8-foot queen named Lala Ree came up to me and said, please don't beat me later. According to Naysha, Lala said that she had watched the episode and she couldn't remember what she had said. And apparently Lala said to Naysha, quote, I read you a little bit and I'm really sorry I did that. I didn't mean to, but I'm going to be at your gig tonight and can you not read me? Naysha then stood up and looked at Lala and laughed and said, quote, Lala, I'm not going to read you, listen, you're a winner. I won Continental and you won a golden boot. And the crowd cheered and started laughing, and Naysha laughed and jumped up and down, and Lala also laughed. So this was clearly just a little bit of shade between the two queens and wasn't meant seriously. Just to explain, for those of you who may not understand, Naysha won Miss Continental in 2013, which is a well-known drag pageant. And previous winners also include Brooklyn Heights from season 11 and Canada's Drag Race, as well as season 15 winner Sasha Colby. And on season 13, Lala Ree won the first ever Golden Boot Award for the worst outfit, which was her paper bag outfit from the episode 5 Bag Ball. And this has gone down in Drag Race history as being probably one of the worst looks ever. And Lala has become known for this, and she has also made lots of jokes about it so far on All Stars 8. So that's what Naysha was making fun of, that she won Continental, whereas Lala won a Golden Boot. And that's it in terms of the Roscoe's recap, and as I said, the full viewing party hasn't been released as of yet, so I'm not sure if it's going to be, but we'll have to wait and see. But for the moment, I thought that those clips that I found from the Roscoe's viewing party at DragCon LA had some interesting backstage tea about the episodes of All Stars 8 so far. And I also thought that I would talk a bit about some drama that apparently happened at DragCon, which took place earlier this week. At DragCon, they often do live reunions with the casts from seasons of Drag Race called Bring Back My Girls. And some drama apparently happened at the reunion for Drag Race Down Under Season 2 between contestants Minnie Cooper and Pamara Fifth. You may remember that on season 2 of Drag Race Down Under, in an episode of Untucked, there was a tense exchange between Minnie and Pamara regarding some drama that they had previously had before the show. And on the show, it wasn't made clear what actually happened, except that Minnie had apparently made a joke about Pamara, and then someone else had told Pamara and made it sound worse than it actually was. However, I then asked Minnie about it in the interview that I did with her, and she gave me some more details, and I'll put a link to the interview in the description and you should go and check it out. But in the interview, Minnie said that she had previously volunteered as a mentor for other drag queens, and Pamara was one of the queens that Minnie had mentored several years before. And according to Minnie, she felt that Pamara wasn't being very respectful of her time. And then, later at a different event, some people had apparently been saying some mean things about Pamara, and Minnie then made a joke and said, quote, "I don't have a problem with Pamara doing drag, I just hate that she gets paid for it." And according to Minnie, this was just supposed to be a joke. But then, apparently, some of the other people who were there with Minnie at the time were then jealous that Minnie had got on Drag Race and they didn't, and so they decided to tell Pamara what Minnie had said about her. But they didn't mention all the things that they had been saying about Pamara, which were apparently worse than what Minnie had said. So, according to Minnie, some people had kind of given Pamara a one-sided story, and that's why Minnie and Pamara had some tension going into the show. Anyway, as I said earlier, at DragCon, they did a reunion with some of the Drag Race Down Under Season 2 cast, and both Minnie and Pamara were there. But according to reports online, Minnie and Pamara started having a heated exchange during the reunion, and at one point, Minnie apparently walked off stage after she and Pamara had a heated exchange and kept talking over each other. Minnie then apparently came back to the stage a little bit later and then talked about their issues, and they said that they would talk about it more in private. The only clip that I did see from this exchange was from a well-known Drag Race influencer, Huge as Mammoth, who is a co-host of the podcast Pressed Conference with Amanda, and they were at DragCon and asked Minnie a question during the reunion. In the clip, the question was a play on the game Shag, Marry, Kill, but instead it was Kiss, Marry, Block. And they asked Minnie, Kiss, Marry, Block between Pamara Fifth, Yuri Guy and Beverly Kills. Just to explain, the reason they probably asked this is because on the show, Minnie had some drama with Pamara, as we know, but she also had some drama with Beverly Kills, and they ended up lip-syncing against each other and Minnie was eliminated. Minnie has also said that she's really good friends with Yuri Guy. Anyway, back to the question, and Minnie said, quote, "Well, obviously I'd kill Pamara," and then Pamara said, quote, "I don't know why," and the crowd started laughing. And then Minnie said that she would marry Yuri, and the crowd said, "Aww." And then Minnie put her hands up to Pamara and said, quote, "Pamara, do you mind not speaking over me again while I'm talking?" And Pamara asked if she was talking over Minnie, and Minnie said yes again. But from the look of the clip, this seemed to be kind of like a joke because the two of them had been arguing about this topic earlier. And that's the end of the clip, so I'm not sure what else happened at the reunion, so we'll have to wait to see if the full episode gets uploaded of Bring Back My Girls. There was also apparently some drama at the Canada's Drag Race Season 3 reunion between Miss Fierce Alicious and Chaos. Apparently the two of them do not get on, and they have blocked each other on social media. And Miss Fierce Alicious even tweeted after the reunion implying as though there was lots of drama. According to people online, what happened was that some of the people in the cast said that Miss Fierce Alicious got a very favourable edit on the show and implied as though it could have been a lot worse. And apparently Chaos said that multiple event bookers that she has worked with have said that they would never book Miss Fierce Alicious again because she has, quote, bullied everyone. And apparently Chaos and Miss Fierce Alicious were then making snide comments about each other the whole time during the panel. And apparently at one point Miss Fierce Alicious said to Chaos, quote, "You were talking bleep about me." One of the other issues that was discussed is that apparently Chaos once said that she had made $3,000 at a drag brunch, and Miss Fierce Alicious was making fun of her and saying that Chaos was bragging about it. But again, we'll have to wait for the full episode of Bring Back My Girls reunion to be uploaded so we can see the full story. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do a full video detailing all of the drama from the Bring Back My Girls reunions from multiple seasons. So there you go, there was a mini Roscoe's recap for All Stars 8 episodes 1 and 2, and also some apparent drama from DragCon LA. Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So, I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8, Episode 3. And the guests this week were Crystal Versace from Drag Race UK Season 3, Blue Hydrangea from Drag Race UK Season 1 and UK vs The World Season 1, Cheryl Hole, also from Drag Race UK Season 1 and UK vs The World Season 1, as well as Tace from Drag Race UK Season 2. And as you may remember, I didn't do a full Roscoe's Recap for episodes 1 and 2 of All Stars 8 because the viewing party took place at DragCon LA and Roscoe's hadn't uploaded the full viewing party, so I just used a few clips that I found online. However, the full viewing party has now been uploaded, so I'm going to give a short recap for that viewing party, as well as the viewing party for this week, because there was some additional information that I thought would be interesting. So today we're going to be talking about Naysha Lopez clarifying what she had said at a previous Roscoe's viewing party, what the Queens thought of Heidi in Closet threatening to leave the competition, and why Monica Beverly Hills knew that she was going to be eliminated in episode 1. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So to start off, as I said earlier, I did do a mini Roscoe's recap for episodes 1 and 2 of All Stars 8, which I'll link to in the description. However, now that the full viewing party has been uploaded for episodes 1 and 2, I just wanted to give some extra information from that viewing party. So, to start off, Naysha revealed that she was actually the last one cast for All Stars 8, and she got the call 2 weeks before filming started. And so Naysha said she already knew who the rest of the cast were because she had heard rumours that lots of people had already been cast, such as Jessica Wilde, who said that she got called about a month before filming started. So this means that Jessica and everyone else had about 2 weeks more to prepare than Naysha did. Darian Lake was one of the guests at the viewing party, and Naysha said that Darian should not have been in the bottom in episode 1 because she never complained and learned the choreography. And then host Batty Davis agreed and said, quote, "I will say her name, James did not carry that." And everyone started clapping and Naysha stood up. Naysha then said, quote, "This is what effing pees me off about this show." And Naysha went on to explain that the judges critiqued Darian for supposedly messing up her choreography, but when it came to James, they also critiqued her for her choreography, but they said that it didn't matter that she messed up. And Naysha said that the judges are not being consistent and said, quote, "The effing hypocrisy. If you're going to set standards, you hold every B to the same mother effing standard." And Alexis Michelle, who was also a guest, said that she thought that her group did better and thought that they were all going to be safe, and she was surprised at the outcome. They then talked about the lip sync between Kahana Montrese and the lip sync assassin that week, which was Aja from season 9 and All Stars 3. And Alexis said that although she loves Aja, she did say that, quote, "My sister Kahana Montrese did the assignment." They then went back to talking about the bottom 2 for episode 1, and because both Alexis and Mrs. Kasha Davis had both said that Darian should not have been in the bottom, Naysha asked who they thought should have been in the bottom instead, and Mrs. Kasha Davis said James. Batty Davis then asked why she thought that, and Mrs. Kasha Davis said, quote, "Because I was there and what you saw was not what happened. She cried, she didn't do the choreography, she wanted to go home, she was ready to quit. I'm just saying I was there." And Alexis then said, quote, hashtag what Kasha said. So it appears that both Mrs. Kasha Davis and Alexis both agreed that James Mansfield should have been in the bottom in episode 1. And it sounds like James potentially had a bit of a meltdown that wasn't shown in the episode, which is why the Queens felt like James should have been in the bottom. And this is interesting because in the clips that we saw from TikTok, the person who posted the videos put the caption saying that Naysha was saying that James should have been in the bottom instead of Naysha, which would imply as though Naysha was talking about episode 2. However, that was actually not the case, and Naysha was actually talking about episode 1, which is when Naysha was safe. And I thought this was an interesting development, and it shows that the original TikTok video was taken somewhat out of context, and it also seems like several of the other All Stars 8 queens also agreed with Naysha that James should have been in the bottom in episode 1. But anyway, that was it for the viewing party for episodes 1 and 2, and now we'll move on to the viewing party for episode 3, which, as I said earlier, featured Crystal Versace, Blue Hydrangea, Cheryl Hole, and Tace. First of all, at the start of the viewing party, Naysha said that she was, quote, conflicted about what to share, and Naysha said that she was being attacked for being bitter or that she was attacking James. But Naysha clarified that she was indeed talking about episode 1 and not episode 2, and Naysha made the point that a lot of the other queens also said that James should have been in the bottom in episode 1, but Naysha was the only one who was getting attacked for it. And Naysha then said that she is sharing her honest opinion and her experience, and what we see on the show isn't always the full story, so when she says things, she's not attacking other queens, she's just giving her honest opinion about a highly produced TV show. And this is a good point to remember, that it's never okay to attack the queens or send hate to them, especially when, as we know, the audience doesn't always see the full story because the show is highly edited, so please be mindful of this when writing in the comments or posting online. Anyway, they then moved on and they started watching episode 3 of All Stars 8, and the guests were asked whether they would ever go back for an All Stars. And Crystal Versace, who won season 3 of Drag Race UK, said that she would go back eventually, and Crystal then said, quote, "I think it would be cute because if we're going to say all tea, I don't think I had much competition on my show, so I would like to go up against some real effing drag." And a lot of people in the audience gasped, and some people started clapping when Crystal said that. Crystal then pointed at Tayce and said, quote, "If I was on your season, it would make sense, but on my season, it was just me, and there was a lot of like, no, it's not shade, well, it probably is, but like, I'm just being honest." And then everyone started laughing and clapping. They then moved on and started talking about drag queens hooking up with other drag queens, and host Caramel said that Tayce had first-hand experience of this and asked her to explain it. Just to explain, Tayce competed on season 2 of Drag Race UK, and on the season, one of the big storylines was that Tayce had apparently hooked up with her fellow season 2 sister, Ahura, and it became a bit of a joke throughout the season, but they never really said what actually happened between them. Anyway, when Caramel asked Tayce that, everyone started clapping, and Tayce said, quote, whoa, stop the press, let me clear this up right now." Tayce then explained that she and Ahura made out once in a club when they first met, and Tayce then said that Ahura kept going on with this storyline that the two of them had slept with each other, but they didn't. Cheryl Hole then joked and said, quote, "She needed a storyline, didn't she?" They then asked the other people on the panel if they had ever hooked up with anyone else, and Naysha laughed and tried to avoid the question, but then she admitted that she had hooked up with another Drag Race queen, but she wouldn't say their name. But she did clarify that it was not anyone from her season. They then moved on to the challenge for this week, which was the supermarket ball, where the queens had to serve 2 looks from home and then make a look themselves using supermarket-themed materials. And Blue Hydrangea made the point that you can't always see the details of an outfit on camera, but then sometimes they'll zoom in on details if they want to use that as a reason to put someone in the bottom. And Naysha said that the judges are actually sitting quite far away from the runway, so they can't always see the outfits very well. But Naysha said something interesting about production and said that before they go on the runway, the queens have to have their photo taken on an iPad in the workroom, and then the judges are given that photo to look at on an iPad during the critiques. And this is how the judges can see the queens' outfits, and they use that to come up with their funny commentary during the runway. But Crystal said that the photos are always horrible and the lighting sucks. They then talked about the Fame game, which is when the eliminated queens get to still showcase their runways every week, and then the audience will get to vote for which eliminated queen had the best runways. And Caramel asked Naysha if she and Monica Beverly Hills would be making an outfit for themselves for the design challenge, but Naysha said no, and that they're just showcasing their 2 looks that they brought from home. And Naysha added that they were really strict with the queens for the design challenge, and the queens were only given a certain amount of time to work on their outfits. And when the time was up, all the queens had to stop working on their outfits, and they weren't allowed any extra time unless everyone got extra time. Blue Hydrangea said that on UK Season 1, they had a day off where they were allowed to work on their outfits, so they had 2.5 days in total. But then on UK vs The World, they only had a day to do it, plus they had to film all of their workroom conversations as well. And Tayce and Crystal said that it was the same for their seasons, and they only got a day to work on the outfits. They then moved on and talked about the bottom two for this week, which was Mrs. Kasha Davis and Darian Lake. And Cheryl said that she felt like Mrs. Kasha Davis had kind of given up because she gave that speech on the runway. Batty Davis then said that Mrs. Kasha Davis had a moment where she showed that photo of her husband in the workroom, and Batty said, quote, "If we know one thing, you don't do that, don't give them that opportunity." And Blue said that when the producers ask you to talk about things, you always think, quote, "Oh no, it's my time." And Blue implied as though that usually means that you're going home that week. Tace agreed and said that if you watch Drag Race a lot, you notice that the person who gets a moment at the beginning of the episode tends to be the person who goes home. Crystal then said that on her season, the exact same thing happened with Anubis, who was eliminated in episode 1. And Crystal said that in the workroom, they went to Anubis and asked her to talk about her father who had passed away, and then they sent her home that episode. Naysha then said that on All Stars 8, in the first episode, she and Monica Beverly Hills were sitting next to each other in the workroom, and Naysha said that a producer came up to them and said, quote, "I need you to talk right now, whatever you want, I just need you guys to get more camera time." And apparently Naysha said to the producer, quote, "There's still 11 episodes, what the F is the problem?" And apparently Monica and Naysha then looked at each other and said that it's not looking good, and they implied as though that they knew that Monica was likely going home that week. They then moved on and talked about the lip sync that episode, which was against Jessica Wilde and Raja O'Hara, who competed on season 11, All Stars 6 and Canada vs. the World. And Caramel said that when Raja was announced as the lip sync assassin, Kahana had said that Raja was a recently crowned queen because she had just won Canada vs. the World. But Caramel questioned how Kahana would have known that because All Stars 8 and Canada vs. the World were filmed around the same time. Batty Davis then said that all the queens know each other, so of course they knew who wins. And Naysha said that the queens are actually told that kind of information by production because it's relevant. Naysha then said that if she were the lip sync assassin and she was up against one of her good friends like Raja was against Jessica Wilde, she would know that your good friend could potentially win $30,000 cash tip. And Naysha then got up and laughed and said that she would have just moved side to side, and Naysha implied as though she would have done badly in the lip sync on purpose to make sure that their friend won the cash tip. They then moved on to Untucked, and there was a moment in Untucked where Heidi in Closet was frustrated that she was safe and said that she felt like she should have been in the top. And Batty said that it reminded her of Lucy LaDuca in season 15, where she always felt like she should be in the top. And Batty said, quote, "You're an all-star, you're either going to win or you're not, but to be and to feel that way is one thing, but don't let production show it, because what we have seen is that they're going to show it and then use it against you." Heidi then said in Untucked that she was going to leave the competition because she was fed up. And they then discussed the topic of queens quitting the competition, and Batty said that Heidi should have thought about that before she voted for Naysha to leave. And Tace then said that if queens think that they're not going to be able to handle the competition, they should not go back for an All-Stars because there are lots of other queens who would love to take that spot. Naysha then brought up Isis Couture, who left Canada vs. the World due to her mental health, and Naysha said that even though Isis was slaying the competition, she left to focus on her mental health, which is a fair reason to leave. However, Naysha said, quote, "If your need to go home is because you're not winning challenges, that's just being a baby." There was then a sweet moment where Naysha FaceTimed Mrs. Kasha Davis, who got eliminated that episode, and Naysha got everyone at Roscoe's to say, quote, "We love you" to Kasha, and Naysha added that she had permission from Kasha to do that. They then moved on to the audience Q&A, and an audience member said that they loved Crystal Versace's C3PO look in the acting challenge on Drag Race UK Season 3. And the audience member asked if the outfits for the acting challenges are provided by the show or if the queens have to bring them from home. Crystal said that the outfits are created there and they're provided by the show, and apparently there's a big warehouse where they have lots of outfits and there is a team who work on these outfits and they have the outfits in all different sizes. But Crystal and Tace implied as though the materials and wigs are usually quite low quality and look like they come from a party store. And finally, someone asked if the queens stole anything from the Drag Race UK set. And Crystal said that she stole some wig heads because they're useful, and Blue Hydrangea joked that they didn't have any wig heads on UK vs. the World because Crystal had taken them all during season 3. Naysha then said that Anitra had admitted that she cut a piece of the workroom wall out and took that with her after season 15. And Naysha said that she also took a piece of the wall during All Stars 8, and then other queens did the same thing, so there is now a huge piece of wall missing in the workroom. And Naysha added that production of season 16 is starting next week, so it'll be interesting to see if they notice that there is a big hole in the workroom wall. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 Episode 3, plus a bit of extra information from the viewing party for Episodes 1 and 2 of All Stars 8. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 4. And the guests this week were Darian Lake and Mrs. Kasha Davis, who both competed on All Stars 8. Today we're going to be talking about what Darian Lake thought about Alexis Michelle throwing her under the bus, why Mrs. Kasha Davis and Naysha Lopez got reprimanded by the show, and why Jimbo locked herself in her hotel room and refused to film her confessionals during UK vs. the World. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started off by saying that Darian Lake was actually the first ever guest for a Roscoe's viewing party. Darian explained that there was a snowstorm, so she had said to the manager at Roscoe's that they should just watch the episode of Drag Race, and that's how the viewing party started at Roscoe's, and Mrs. Kasha Davis was also there. Darian also said that it was during season 7 during the episode where Pearl won the lip sync against Trixie Mattel. And Darian said that she was so shocked at the outcome and joked that she, quote, threw a chair across the room. They then watched the first part of this week's episode of All Stars 8, which included Kasha's elimination from the episode the week before. And host Naysha Lopez, who also competed on All Stars 8, asked Kasha if she regrets the speech that she gave on the main stage, which several people interpreted as Kasha giving up and saying that she didn't mind if she went home. And Naysha also asked how Kasha felt about Jessica Wilde, who was the winner of last week's challenge, choosing to eliminate Kasha, even though Kasha had a better track record than Darian. Kasha said, quote, I absolutely don't regret what I said on the runway. Kasha also said that she grew up in the theatre and she's used to getting feedback as well as feeling gratitude and kindness. Kasha then paused and said, quote, track record, and then she pointed at Darian, insinuating that Darian should have been eliminated rather than her based on track record. Darian then said, quote, I should have not been in the bottom in that first episode, so F everybody, and everyone laughed. Kasha then said that she felt like she should have been in the top in episode 2 for her role as Barb in the acting challenge. And Kasha said, quote, I wasn't recognised for that. Ageism. Kasha then said that it was, quote, surprising to me that Jessica chose to eliminate her because she had been helping Jessica with her acting and her lines in the acting challenge the week before. Kasha then talked about the outfit that she made for the design challenge and said, quote, that being said, the dress was bleep. But then she joked and pointed out the fact that on Fashion Photo Review, she was given a toot and a shoot, which are the two highest scores that you can get. Kasha then repeated that she didn't regret what she said on the runway, but what she does regret is that, quote, half of what I said in the beginning of this episode was used, but that's production, right? And that's what we want it to look like, that Mrs. Kasha Davis has a dog and a husband and children at home, and the rest of that sentence was, she doesn't. And then Kasha pointed at Darian and everyone started laughing. Darian then joked and said, quote, I'm all alone, but I have the people from World of Wonder watching right now. Hi sweetie, how are you doing? Are you on pins and needles? I hope so, F you. They then talked about Darian being in the bottom in episode 1, and Naysha said that she did talk about this in the first viewing party for All Stars 8, but her words got, quote, misconstrued, and they're like, oh, you're attacking James. And Naysha said that she's going to stick to what she said, and Darian should never have been in the bottom in episode 1. Naysha elaborated and said that all of the other queens at the viewing party for episode 1 agreed that someone else should have been in the bottom, but Naysha said that she wasn't going to repeat it. Just to explain in case you haven't seen it, in the first viewing party for episode 1 of All Stars 8, Naysha said that James Mansfield should have been in the bottom in episode 1, and many of the other queens agreed, and Kasha even said that James had had a meltdown and cried, but it wasn't shown in the episode. And people online falsely claimed that Naysha was referring to episode 2, and that Naysha thought that James should have been in the bottom instead of Naysha, but that wasn't actually the case. Mrs. Kasha Davis then said that both she and Naysha got a little bit, quote, reprimanded because of what they had said at the first viewing party, insinuating that the producers told them off because they had been spilling backstage tea and criticising the show. And Naysha then said, quote, I mean, I don't give an F, and everyone laughed. They then moved on to the challenge for this week on All Stars 8, which was called Screen Queens, and the queens split into groups and had to create their own trailers for a TV show. And Darian was asked if she was happy with her team and the final product that they created. Darian said, quote, you never know what's going to happen, they're always teasing you and all that stuff, you know? And Naysha said, quote, say it Darian, you don't know how they're going to edit it. And it seems like Naysha was referring to the fact that often, with these types of challenges where the queens create their own films, the final edit can sometimes be different to what the queens actually filmed. And queens in the past have said that their videos were edited to make them look worse than they actually were because the producers wanted a reason to put that queen in the bottom. They then moved on to the runway for that week, and the category was As the World Turns. And Naysha said that Darian looked, quote, absolutely stunning, and everyone clapped. Darian said that it took a lot for her to do that because of her body confidence issues, but she said that she did not use any padding and it was all her own body. Darian then said, quote, I just kept pulling that corset until I could taste my nuts. They then talked about James Mansfield's look for this week, which James said was inspired by her Mexican and indigenous culture. And host Caramel said, quote, me and Batty just found out that James is indigenous in this moment right here. We knew that they were Mexican, but we didn't know they were indigenous. But, beautiful gowns. And everyone started laughing. Just to explain that in case you don't know, this is a reference to a comment that legendary singer Aretha Franklin once made in an interview. In the interview, Aretha was asked her opinion on lots of other singers, such as Adele and Whitney Houston, and Aretha said quite nice things about each of them. And when Aretha was asked about Taylor Swift, Aretha just said, quote, gowns, beautiful gowns. And many people took this to be a slightly shady comment by Aretha because she made comments on Taylor's outfits rather than her vocal abilities. And since then, this expression of gowns, beautiful gowns, has become a joke and is a way to throw some shade at someone. So it's not clear if Caramel meant that here exactly, but several people gasped and laughed when Caramel said that. Mrs. Kasha Davis then said it was, quote, something different for her. Naysha then said that this was a very smart thing for James to do because, quote, as a judge, they will never talk negatively about someone's culture. And some people in the audience groaned and slightly booed. And Naysha said, quote, seriously, that's what you do. And she said that RuPaul and the other judges are not going to say anything bad about an outfit that's to do with someone's culture, so it's a smart move. But Naysha said that James's proportions were good and her ass looked great. They then moved on to the moment during the judges' critiques where Alexis Michelle apologised for her group's performance and then said that the concept was Darian's idea and many people felt like Alexis threw Darian under the bus. Caramel then said, quote, grab your venture cards because Alexis Michelle is driving the bus, and everyone started laughing. Naysha then said, quote, she threw Darian under that bus so fierce. Darian, what were your thoughts in that very moment? Darian explained that she was trying to defend her team and their concept, but the other two in her team were just standing there being silent. Darian then implied that earlier in the day, Darian, Alexis and James had agreed that they would all defend each other. And Darian said, quote, of course I would stand by you, but you've both been guests in my home. And everyone started laughing because Darian was making a slightly shady dig at the other two. Darian then said that what she wanted to say was, quote, B, are ye for effing real? I want to thunder punch you in the effing sea right now. And Kasha said that she wished Darian had actually said that on the runway, and Darian replied, quote, no, I didn't say that, it definitely was not edited out. So it's not clear if this was a joke or whether Darian was implying that she did say something back to Alexis on the main stage, but it was just edited out. And Darian said that she and Alexis had spoken since then and they're all good, and Naysha also said that the queens don't get mad at each other because they all know that it's a TV show at the end of the day. Darian then said that she felt that she gave the best performance in her group, and she also felt that her runway outfit had the best fit. And Darian explained that she overcame a huge fear of showing her legs, and she talked about body positivity and that every body is beautiful. And Darian said that one thing that she did talk about on the show, but the footage wasn't used, is that during the 2020 lockdown, Darian found a mole on her leg, and it turned out that it was melanoma, which is a type of skin cancer. And they had to perform surgery to remove the mole, and they also took her lymph nodes to make sure the cancer hadn't spread. And because of that, Darian has a big scar on her leg. Darian then added that luckily the cancer hadn't spread, so she's safe for now. But Darian made the point that May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month and you should get yourself checked, because if you get sunburn even a few times in your life, it can increase your risk of skin cancer by 20%. And Darian said that because she had overcome all of that, she wanted to show her legs and she felt really good about herself and showing her body. Mrs. Kasha Davis then said, quote, "I don't know where you got the outfit, it looked perfect on you." And Darian then said that the outfit was actually Kasha's outfit and she had loaned it to Darian because she said that it looked better than what Darian had originally brought. They then talked about the fact that Jimbo had won this week's challenge, and Naysha said that Jimbo has had such a glow up since her first season. And Naysha said that Jimbo's face has changed a lot and it's not just filler, and apparently Naysha asked Jimbo if her teeth had changed. And apparently Jimbo wears a flipper, which is a removable retainer that you clip onto your teeth and it makes your teeth look different to how they actually look. And Naysha joked that they'd all spent thousands of dollars on the show, and Jimbo had just ordered her flipper on Amazon and popped it in. They then got to the part of the episode where Darian got eliminated and everyone at Roscoe's cheered for Darian. Darian then said that she was glad that she was at Roscoe's with her friends, such as her best Judy Kasha, when she got eliminated. And Darian then joked and said, quote, "Please vote for me for the Fame Games because," she pointed out, "I am single, I have nobody, I have cancer, no, they cut that out," and everyone started laughing. And previously, Naysha had said that Darian has a very dark sense of humour, and Naysha joked and said, quote, "It doesn't end, this is all the time." Naysha then asked Darian if she knew that her lipstick was going to be chosen for elimination, and Darian said yes. And Naysha said that apparently Jimbo takes the deliberation part very seriously because on UK vs the World, Jimbo was eliminated by Pangina in a similar circumstance. And Naysha spilled some backstage tea about a story Jimbo had told her, and apparently when Jimbo was filming UK vs the World, after she was eliminated, the producers told her that she had to come back to film her confessionals. But Jimbo apparently said no and locked herself in her hotel room, and Naysha said that the producers got, quote, peed at her and reminded her that she had a contract and kind of threatened her. And apparently Jimbo then just said, quote, "I'm just kidding, let me get ready," and then she went and filmed the rest of the footage that the producers needed. They then talked about the amount of suitcases the queens are allowed to bring to Drag Race, and Darian didn't want to say, but then Naysha said that the show would only pay for up to 8 suitcases. And Mrs. Kasha Davis said, quote, "Unless you break the rules and bring more." And Naysha said that Candy Muse brought 10 suitcases, but Naysha said that Candy's padding and outfits are bigger, so it's fair that some queens get to bring more suitcases than others because all queens have different requirements. They then moved on to the audience Q&A session, and an audience member said that in a normal season of Drag Race, World of Wonder has a lot of control over what the queens can post on social media, and the queens have to get permission. And the audience member asked whether it's the same for All Stars, and if the queens are told not to post things by World of Wonder, which would mess up their Fame Game content. Naysha said, quote, "I have 100% control over my social media. They said it is up to you to do whatever you want, which is different on All Stars compared to a regular season." And Kasha said that there were no restrictions, and she thinks that World of Wonder have seen in previous seasons that the queens who got eliminated posted photos of their unaired looks, and World of Wonder wanted in on that. And they want to take advantage of the fact that the queens get photo shoots and videos done for their unaired runway looks. And Kasha said that it's a great thing because it boosts engagement on social media, and she thanked World of Wonder for doing that. Naysha then said that the fame game is a positive thing, but the reason that she was vocal about it is because it's not in your contract, and the queens didn't know anything about it until they started filming the season. And Naysha said that in her opinion, All Stars 7 was the most beautiful season because everyone stayed, they were all winners, and they got to show their runways. And Naysha then referred to the fame games and said, quote, "This was their way of doing that but not paying you for it. How do we do all of the runways without having to keep all these girls here because we're not going to pay?" Naysha then said, quote, "That winners season was hell because those girls were winners and they were like, you're not going to effing eliminate us, you're going to give me an effing check. So they're like, how do we do that but not get all that winners energy? That was too much for us. The fame game was the answer to that." So it sounds like Naysha was saying that the fame game was created to capitalise on the success of what had happened in All Stars 7, that all of the queens got to show their runways every week, but they didn't actually have to pay the queens for this. And finally, someone asked about whether there's going to be a union for drag queens. And Naysha said that there should be a union for drag queens because drag queens work so hard and they deserve protection. And Naysha said that she has friends who are part of SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild, which is a labour union for actors. And Naysha said that there's no such equivalent for drag queens, and there should be. And Naysha is really passionate about it and has been working on this for a long time, and she wants to try and get a national union to protect drag queens. So there you go, there was the Roscoes Recap for RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 8 Episode 4. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back again for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 5. And the guests were Selena S. Titties and Lucy LaDuca, who both competed on Season 15. Today we're going to be talking about why Heidi N Closet left All Stars 8, Lucy LaDuca talks about how production effed with her on Season 15, and Evie Oddly slams Drag Race and says that they didn't pay her for over a year after her win. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So before the episode started, they started off by talking about Selena and Lucy and whether they would ever go back for an All Stars. And Selena said that she would go back eventually, but she doesn't know where she stands with the show after the negative comments that she made about Ross Matthews. Just in case you don't know, during the airing of Season 15, Selena was at a live show, and because she was annoyed at the critiques that Judge Ross Matthews had given her, Selena said that Ross could, quote, "eat my ass, bleep." I talked about this more in my Roscoe's Recap for that episode, so make sure you check out that video for the full story of the drama that happened between Selena and Ross Matthews. I'll put a link in the description. Host Naysha Lopez, who also competed on All Stars 8, then said that at the beginning of the episode, they were already, quote, effing with Heidi because they asked her how she felt about not winning anything. And Naysha asked Lucy if she thought that the show, quote, effed with her during Season 15 because Lucy's edit always showed her being frustrated. Lucy said, quote, "I think I did realise they were effing with me, but I just realised a bit too late." And Lucy went on to explain that every day, the producers kept asking Lucy to list all of her mini and maxi challenge wins, and they would then use that in the edit, which explains why Lucy mentioned it so many times during Season 15. They then talked about the fact that Selena was very quiet in the workroom on Season 15, but then she was very vocal in the confessionals. And Selena said that she felt freer to talk in the confessionals because you're just sat in a room on your own talking to an iPad and no one else is in the room. And the crowd gasped when Selena said that, and Selena said, quote, "Was I not meant to say that?" But then the host said that that tea was already spilled regarding the fact that the contestants are talking to an iPad in the confessionals. They then talked about the confessionals on Drag Race, and Naysha said that on All Stars 8, they didn't use any of her confessionals in the first episode because she was very honest and said that James Mansfield should have been in the bottom. But that didn't align with the storyline that the show was trying to push, so they couldn't use any of Naysha's confessionals. And Naysha said that she wasn't going to lie in the confessionals, but she said, quote, "If there's something you want me to do, I'll do it, but tell me what it is." Naysha also said that if the show wants her to come for just 2 episodes and they're going to eliminate her after 2 episodes, then let her be part of the game and let her know that she doesn't have to spend $30,000 to $40,000 on 12 runways. And Naysha said that the show shouldn't let the queens spend their hard-earned savings and then get sent home first like Monica Beverly Hills. And then on top of that, the show makes them do the fame games and they don't give them a paycheck for it, but the queens have to do it because they signed a contract. Host Batty Davis then said that they should talk about Evie Oddly not getting paid, and the crowd started laughing. Just to explain, Evie Oddly, who won season 11 and also competed in All Stars 7 All Winners, recently posted a series of tweets where she called out the show for not paying her. In one of the tweets, Evie said, quote, "P.S. They took over a year to pay me my winnings because they conveniently kept forgetting they owed me 100k with a middle finger emoji." Evie said that, quote, "The producers are often the greediest, most calculating capitalist culture thieves. And they, quote, F with real people's lives, career opportunities and health. They drive themselves home in luxury cars when their contestants are sleep deprived, depressed and drastically underpaid for their contributions to the cultural phenomenon. They then tell themselves they're good people for showcasing queer content and creating opportunities for us, while ignoring the irreparable damage they cause and creating a chokehold monopoly on how drag artists can succeed." And Evie finished by saying that she's very thankful for being on the show, but she hopes for a future where people have the opportunity to flourish outside of a fake competition to make a few rich older gays richer. Anyway, going back to Roscoe's, and Naysha said that she thought it was interesting that Naysha gets so many comments with people saying that she's bitter because of all the things she says about the show, but Naysha made the point that Evie is someone who won the show and went on to do an all-winner season, and even she feels the exact same way that Naysha does. And Naysha said that there's a pattern of behaviour, and so many contestants are just happy to get on TV so they can get more gigs because the show does boost their careers, but the show doesn't realise how many people they're hurting because the queens get so much hate when the show comes out. They then talked about the challenge for this week, which was the Snatch Game of Love. And they talked about Kahana Montrese doing her drag mother Coco Montrese as her character. Host Caramel then said that she thought that queens weren't allowed to choose other drag queens as their Snatch Game characters. And Selena and Lucy said that on season 15 they weren't allowed to choose any other drag queens as their characters, but Naysha said that the rules are different for All Stars. They then started talking about how good it would be if the queens were all living in a house together like Big Brother because there would be so much drama. And Naysha spilled a bit of tea from episode 1 and said that there was a moment that happened off camera when the queens were unpacking their outfits, and apparently 2 of the queens pulled out the exact same runway outfit, but Naysha wouldn't say who the queens were. But apparently the queens used the same designer, and the designer didn't realise that both queens were on All Stars. But when the designer found out, they called one of the queens and asked them to send the outfit back and offered to make something else. But I assume there wasn't enough time because both queens ended up bringing the exact same outfit to Drag Race. And Naysha said that one of the queens ended up wearing it on the runway and the other queen will be a guest at Roscoe's in the future, so she'll let them tell the story. They then got to the moment in the episode where Heidi in Closet decided to leave the competition and she walked out. Just in case you haven't seen the episode, in the workroom, Kahana confronted Heidi and said that she felt like Heidi threw her under the bus because Heidi kept making jokes during the Snatch Game about Kahana's jokes not landing. And Heidi apologised and said she didn't mean for it to come across that way. And then Candy Muse confronted Heidi, and Candy said that Heidi had lied to Jimbo and told Jimbo that Candy had said that she would eliminate Jimbo. Heidi then said that that was true and said that Alexis was there and could confirm. And Alexis then nodded her head and agreed that Candy had said that she would eliminate Jimbo. But then when Candy confronted Alexis, Alexis changed what she said and then she said that Candy didn't exactly say that. So then it made it look like Heidi was lying and Jimbo didn't know who to believe. And Heidi said she didn't like where this was going and she felt alone and then she left the competition. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Naysha implied that she had spoken to the queens about what happened, but said that this was just her opinion. And Naysha said she thinks that perhaps it's the case that one queen said something to another queen and then another queen, and things got misconstrued as the information got passed between the queens. Heidi hasn't publicly addressed this as of yet, but she did post on her social media that she would be talking about it in her Patreon exclusive podcast. And apparently in the podcast, Heidi said that one of the reasons she left is because she was upset that the alliance between her, Candy and Jimbo had broken down and that her sisters didn't believe her. But Heidi also said that there were a lot of personal things going on outside of the show that also weighed on her, which is another reason why she decided to leave. But Heidi said that all the queens are on good terms. And this was backed up by Kahana, who tweeted saying that she and Heidi are good and that Heidi had already decided to leave the competition before that episode. Alexis Michelle and Jimbo also talked about this moment more during a recent Instagram live. Alexis said that off camera, Jimbo told Alexis that apparently Heidi had gone to Jimbo and said that Candy was coming for Jimbo. Jimbo then brought up the moment where Alexis at first agreed with what Heidi was saying about Candy, but then as soon as Candy confronted Alexis, Alexis changed what she said. Alexis then said that although she loves Candy, she was, quote, scared of her, which is why she changed what she said. Alexis and Jimbo also said that it wasn't the first time that Heidi had talked about leaving the competition. And Jimbo said that the argument was, quote, the straw that broke the camel's back, and there were so many other people and factors that were involved in Heidi's decision to leave. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and they all said that they supported Heidi's decision to leave and protect her mental health. And Naysha said that, quote, nothing is worth your happiness, so she applauds Heidi's decision for removing herself from a situation that was messing with her head. Naysha also said that even in the first episode, when the queens had to pick the lipstick of the bottom two queens to decide who was going home, apparently the queens are all separated so they can't discuss who they're going to vote for. And apparently when Heidi came out of the room after voting, it was really draining her, and apparently she was, quote, bawling, crying, and said, quote, I hate this, I didn't think we were going to have to do this, because they had just had All Stars 7 when no one got eliminated. So it seems like this may have taken a toll on Heidi because she wasn't expecting to have to eliminate her sisters, and Naysha said that Heidi was very upset from the beginning of the season. And Naysha also added that she had spoken to Heidi since then, and Heidi said that although it took her a while to get there, she's now in a great place and she doesn't regret leaving. They then moved on and started talking about the finale episodes of Drag Race, and Naysha asked Selena and Lucy about a rumour she had heard. Apparently at the season 15 finale, one of the queens didn't want to go back on stage because they didn't make it to the final two, which means that it was either Mistress Isabel Brooks or Luxe Noir London. And Naysha asked if the rumour was true, and Selena then put her hand to her mouth and giggled, which was something that Mistress did throughout season 15. So it seems like Selena was confirming that it was Mistress who didn't want to come back out on stage at the season 15 finale. Host Batty Davis then brought up that Selena had ripped up Lucy LaDuca's photo in the confessional. I did talk about this in a previous video, but basically, after the moment when they were asked who should go home tonight and why, Lucy had said Selena's name, and Selena was very angry because she had been very supportive of Lucy. And apparently afterwards in the confessionals, Selena saw a printed out photo of Lucy and ripped it up. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Lucy explained that she always knew that Selena had ripped up the photo because she was the only one in the room. And apparently when they came back the next day, the photo was stuck back together with scotch tape, and Selena had drawn a photo of Lucy and left her an apology note, and the two of them made up that day. But apparently, production didn't give Lucy the note from Selena right away, presumably because production didn't want the two of them to make up too quickly because it wouldn't make good television. And Selena added that they were all there to make good TV, and she also tried to fight with Lucy in her last Untucked episode, but Lucy just wasn't fighting back. But they stressed that the two of them are totally fine now and they made up while they were still on set. They then moved on to the audience Q&A, and an audience member asked Naysha, Selena and Lucy who from their seasons they would not invite to a barbecue at their house. Selena said that she would not invite Irene Dubois, and this is probably because at the reunion for season 15, Irene made a joke about Selena having a fake accent, and Selena said, quote, okay white girl. However, Selena laughed when she said Irene's name, so it seems like Selena was probably just joking about this and it wasn't meant seriously. They then asked Lucy, and people in the audience shouted out Mistress, and Lucy said it probably would be Mistress because Mistress would probably not answer her call. And Naysha then said the person she would not invite to a barbecue from her season would be Derek Barry. And Naysha said that she wouldn't call Derek for anything, and then said, quote, I'm just not calling the B, period. Just in case you don't know, Naysha and Derek were both on season 8 together, but the two of them do not get on. And one time, Derek was a guest at Roscoe's and she confronted Naysha about some things that Naysha had said about Derek. And the two of them kept arguing throughout the viewing party and it became a bit awkward. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and someone then pointed to a photo of Britney Spears on the ceiling at Roscoe's and said that that was Derek Barry, because Derek is an impersonator of Britney Spears. And Naysha pointed at the photo and said, quote, "No, that's so unsuccessful, that's Britney Spears," and everyone started laughing. And Naysha clarified that she was joking and Derek is very successful and is part of Drag Race Live in Las Vegas. And finally, an audience member said that as a viewer, it's quite obvious that production has favourites on a season, and they sometimes rig the competition to fit their narrative. And they asked whether the queens also notice this whilst they're filming the show, and does it affect their motivation? Selena said, quote, "It's very disheartening to walk into a room where you know it's not in your favour at all." And Lucy agreed with that and said that if you're doing a challenge and you have the idea in your head that you're going to be in the bottom regardless of how well you do, it can be a little disheartening. Selena also said that that's the reason why she was so quiet in the workroom on season 15. And Selena said she knew that Ariana Grande was going to be a guest star in the first episode because she's friends with Ariana outside of the show. But when they had Vivacious come in for Selena's group instead of Ariana, Selena said she felt like the show didn't want to show Ariana and Selena having a moment together, and that's why Selena started getting in her head from the start. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 Episode 5. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 6. And the guest this week was Kahana Montrese, who competed on Season 11 and All Stars 8. I'll put the link to the full viewing party in the description, so make sure you check that out if you want to see the full viewing party. Today we're going to be talking about why Kahana knew that James Mansfield would be eliminated instead of her, Naysha spills some backstage production tea about this week's runway, and why Heidi and Closet came back to the set after quitting the competition. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started by talking about last week's episode when Heidi and Closet left the competition after there was a heated exchange in the workroom. Host Naysha Lopez asked Kahana if she saw it coming that Heidi was going to leave the competition, and Kahana said yes and that everyone saw it coming. Kahana said, quote, "She was already ready to leave. She had made it up in her mind a long time ago that she wasn't happy." And Kahana added that it was very dramatic, but she can understand why Heidi left because Heidi needs to do what's best for her. Then Kahana talked about the drama that she had had with Heidi that episode, where she said that she felt that Heidi was making jokes at her expense during the Snatch Game. Apparently Kahana had confided in Heidi before Snatch Game that she had a, quote, full breakdown because Kahana was so nervous. And Kahana said that Heidi was just trying to do the best she could during the Snatch Game and give energy. But Kahana added that she was struggling and, quote, "I didn't need any help to dig my hole, it was already dug by myself. As a sister, I wanted you to have my back. If you see that I'm down, don't go in on me." But Kahana acknowledged that it's a competition, so she can understand why Heidi did that. Host Caramel then asked whether Kahana and Heidi got to resolve their dispute, and Kahana said yes, they did talk about it on set, but it wasn't shown in the episode. And Kahana said that Heidi actually came back to the set, presumably so that they could resolve what happened. Kahana also said that she had no idea about what had happened between Candy, Heidi, Alexis and Jimbo, so that was a total surprise. But Kahana explained that when they came back to the workroom after the Snatch Game, Heidi tried to talk to Kahana and Kahana said that she needed a second. But apparently production saw that Kahana wasn't very happy, so apparently they told Heidi to ask Kahana what was wrong. And Kahana joked and said, quote, "I was just like, oh really, we gonna do this? This just kind of lit everything up. I was the match and Candy was the gasoline." Naysha then asked if Kahana was really that upset at Heidi, and Naysha added that Snatch Game goes on for a lot longer than what we see on the show, and a lot of it gets cut out. And Kahana said that's exactly what the tea was, and what we saw was only a little bit of what Heidi was doing, but Kahana said that Heidi was, quote, "going in on me. I wouldn't have been upset if it was just what they showed. She kept letting me have it. I wanted to take that effing map and throw it at her ass."
But Kahana said all of this with a smile and then said that it was fun to watch it all back and it made good TV. So Kahana doesn't regret it because it was great TV. Naysha then said that some of the queens said that if Heidi had stayed, the bottom two for that episode might have been different, and Naysha asked Kahana if she agreed with that. Kahana said that we'll never know for sure, but she did think that the bottom might have been different if Heidi had stayed. And Kahana said she knew she was going home that episode and she was fully prepared for that. But Kahana was really upset that she was in the bottom with Jessica Wilde, and she felt bad for Jessica because she didn't think Jessica deserved to be in the bottom. And apparently they didn't even show Jessica's funniest jokes in the episode. They then moved on to the challenge for this week, which was Joan, the Unauthorized Rusical, which was a musical based on the life of Joan Crawford. Just to explain in case you don't know, Joan Crawford was a very famous American actress who was very famous in the 1920s and 30s and had a career that spanned several decades. One of her most famous films was Mildred Pierce in 1945, and then later she starred in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962 alongside Bette Davis. And this is actually the film that was referenced in the acting challenge in All Stars 2 with Alaska and Alyssa Edwards. Later in life, Joan adopted several children, one of which being a daughter named Christina Crawford. And after Joan's death in 1977, Christina wrote a book in 1978 called Mummy Dearest, which was a tell-all memoir where Christina alleged that Joan had been abusive to her. A movie also called Mummy Dearest then came out in 1981, and it was loosely based on Christina's memoir, although Christina has said that she was not involved in the movie and that the movie contained a lot of inaccuracies. The movie Mummy Dearest starred Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford, and it was not very well received at the time, but later went on to become a cult classic. And many of the references made in the Rusical were actually references to the movie rather than to Joan herself. Anyway, Naysha asked Kahana how many times they performed the Rusical, and Kahana said 3 times because they had to get different camera angles and things like that. Naysha said that everyone did really well and no one did badly, so if you're in the bottom that week, you're probably in the bottom by default. Host Bette Davis said that she felt that some parts in the Rusical were less challenging than others. Host Caramel said that she was, quote, whelmed by Jimbo. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like Candy, Lala and Alexis. Kahana then said she felt that there were some roles that were catered to certain queens, depending on if they're a dancer or not, and Kahana said that she had a hard role. Naysha then said that this is where she feels the show, quote, makes a mistake, and she said that everyone needs to be held to the same standard. And Naysha said, quote, if you expect a 5, 6, 7, 8 from Kahana, you should expect it from Jimbo. If she doesn't do it, she needs to pay the consequences. And Naysha made the point that in the Snatch Game, you're expected to be funny like Jimbo was, and Kahana was held to the same standard, so it's only fair that you do the same for a performance challenge as well. And Naysha said, quote, the standard kind of changes and shifts for certain people, and that's not the mother effing tea. And Kahana agreed with Naysha that everything should be held to the same standard. And Naysha also said, quote, you can definitely see Candy came out, there's dancers, Jessica came out, there's dancers, Jimbo came out, there's a wheelchair. And some people in the audience moaned, but some people seemed to agree with what Naysha was saying. They then got to the moment in the episode where Candy Muse won the challenge and Kahana and James Mansfield were announced as the bottom 2. Kahana said, quote, it was crazy for me because I thought I was high or at least safe. I was really shook. They got me, gal. Naysha asked if Kahana was worried about going home, and Kahana said, quote, if I'm being honest, I was not worried because I know I was stronger. It's not shade, I knew I was sickening. Kahana then said that production will do what production does, but the queens are all drag performers, and all the queens believed that Kahana did not deserve to be in the bottom that week. They then talked about how the queens vote for who should go home, and Naysha spilled some tea and said that the queens are mic'd the whole time so production can hear what they're saying. But sometimes the queens would rub or tap their mics so that production couldn't hear what they were saying to each other, and they pretty much tell each other how they're going to vote or if they're going to go by track record, etc. They then got to the moment where James Mansfield was eliminated, and later in Untucked we saw that pretty much everyone voted for James to be eliminated. Naysha said that in her opinion, production thought that the queens were going to vote by track record because they had talked about it so much throughout the season. And so that might have been why Kahana might have been put in the bottom along with James. But then the queens decided to vote for James to go. Naysha thinks that, quote, threw them for a loop because Kahana had been in the bottom more than James, so production weren't expecting the queens to vote for James, and Kahana agreed. Kahana said, quote, "It started with Heidi leaving. I knew for a fact I was supposed to go home that episode." And Kahana said she thinks that then threw production because she was so good in the Rusical, and implied as though production weren't expecting that. But Kahana joked that she was just happy to stay for another episode and add an extra 1,000 to her booking fee. Naysha then said she got some backlash because of some of the comments she had made at Roscoe's before, and apparently a lot of people asked why Naysha went back if she knew what production does. And Naysha said the reason the queens go back is because they want to throw production for a loop, and you want to be so good that you disturb the production's plan. They then talked more about James's elimination, and Naysha asked Kahana how she felt, and Kahana said, quote, "We all knew what was going down. No tea, it was not a shock to anybody. It wasn't even track record, it was B. Kahana didn't deserve to be in the bottom. She slayed, we're going to save her." They then moved on to Untucked, and they said that James was pleading her case to Candy, but they all thought that Candy had already made up her mind, and Kahana agreed. Kahana then said she felt that from everybody, and she implied as though the other queens subtly implied as though they were going to vote for James because Kahana didn't deserve to be in the bottom. And Kahana added that, quote, "I don't think it was anything to do with James being a threat. As talented as she is, I don't think that was going through anybody's mind." Naysha then spilt some tea about this week's runway, which was a night of 1,000 Grace Joneses. And just in case anyone doesn't know, Grace Jones is a model, singer and actress, and she's very well known for her fashion and distinctive style. Anyway, Naysha said that because of what happened on season 8, when they did the Madonna runway and multiple people chose the kimonos, the show now makes the queens tell them in advance what they want to do. And the queens have to find the images on Getty Images, which is a stock image site, so that the show can buy the rights to use the image on the show. And the image has to be from Getty Images, which means that it can't be from a music video or anything that's copyrighted, so most of the photos have to come from red carpet looks or events. And Kahana said that her look was based on a photo shoot that Grace Jones did, but the show didn't approve the image, but Kahana still wanted to do the look, so instead she found a similar outfit that Grace Jones wore to a concert. Naysha then said that she only had about 16 days to prepare for All Stars 8. So when Naysha submitted the Getty image that she wanted to use for the runway, the show told her that another contestant had already chosen that image. And Naysha chose another image, but then the same thing happened and she had to choose another image. And apparently they told Naysha that one of the queens had chosen 4 looks and they were trying to decide which one they wanted to use. And Naysha was made to wait for this other queen to choose which of the 4 looks she wanted to use. Naysha then said, quote, "That's the problem that I have with production. That's what pees me off. That's some shady bleep right there." Apparently the look that Naysha submitted first was the look that Jessica Wilde had already chosen. And the second look was the one that Candy Muse had already chosen. But Naysha didn't say which queen it was who had chosen the 4 potential options on hold. And Naysha said that even the producer that she was in contact with thought that it was unfair that Naysha was made to wait, especially because Naysha had not had very much time to get ready. They then moved on to the audience Q&A, and host Caramel asked Kahana if she got any help from any other queens. And Kahana said that she kept it all pretty quiet, but the only queens she did reach out to were her season 11 sisters, Silky Nutmeg Ganache and Akira C. Davenport. And apparently both Silky and Akira helped to make Kahana's outfit for the Grace Jones runway. And they also helped Kahana pack and also helped to keep Kahana in good spirits. And finally, another audience member then asked whether Kahana thought that because of the way that Candy voted, whether that was going to affect the way the queens will vote going forward. And Kahana said she couldn't say too much, but she did say that it definitely changed the way that the queens decided to vote. And now it's the top 6, nobody is thinking about track record, and the queens are more likely to vote out their competition because they're getting closer to the crown. And there are also various alliances between the queens. And Batty asked Kahana if James thought she was going to be sent home that episode, and Kahana said no, and apparently James thought that Kahana was going to be sent home instead of her. But Kahana made it clear that she and James are fine, and in fact Kahana tweeted in support of James and said how great James is, and James responded saying, quote, "You know how much I adore you, honey." So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars 8 Episode 6. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 7. And the guests were Brooklyn Heights from Season 11 and judge of Canada's Drag Race, as well as Bibi Sahara Benet from Season 1 and All Stars 3. If you'd like to watch the full viewing party on Roscoe's channel, I'll put a link in the description. Today we're going to be talking about why Brooklyn Heights thought about quitting Season 11, some drama between Alexis Michelle and Luxe Noir London on Twitter, and some backstage drama about Kahana Montrese on Season 11. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started out by talking about the beginning of this week's episode when the queens had to pick roles for the improv challenge called Forensic Queens. And host Caramel said that the queens had to fight for their roles this week, whereas in previous weeks they had to audition, and asked the guests why they did that. And Brooklyn said it makes for better drama when the queens have to fight over their roles. And as you may remember from the episode, Alexis Michelle and Candy Muse wanted the same role and they started having an argument about it. Alexis then started crying and Candy ended up walking away and said that she had had enough of the dramatics. However, just as some additional information in case you don't know, after the episode aired, the official RuPaul's Drag Race Twitter account posted a clip of that moment. And Season 15 contestant Luxe Noir London retweeted that clip and said, #I stand with Candy Muse. Alexis then commented on the post and said, "Lux, this is not the tweet. My tears weren't about picking roles. There was a lot going on in my head and that's not on Candy, but please be a sister." And Lux replied saying, "Work." However, Alexis's tweet has since been deleted. But then fellow Season 15 contestant Mistress Isabel Brooks tweeted and seemed to make a joke about this by copying Alexis's deleted tweet but just switched out the name. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Caramel wondered whether the other queens knew that Alexis and Candy were going to start having an argument because they started smirking as soon as Alexis and Candy started talking. And Brooklyn made the point that Jimbo is always so chilled when she's out of drag, which is weird because when she's in drag, her style is really over the top and crazy. The host then asked the guests what they thought of the improv and acting challenges, and Bibi said, quote, "I love Drag Race of course, but I just have an issue with many acting challenges." Bibi went on to explain that although she knows that Drag Race is a TV show, she thinks that there is too much focus on acting and that drag queens should be able to express many other facets of their talent apart from acting the fool. And Bibi then said, quote, "How many times do any of us come up to the club and act?" Host Batty Davis then said, quote, "Every time, you're acting right now," and Brooklyn said something similar, but Bibi disagreed. They then got to the moment in the episode when RuPaul came into the workroom to give the queens a pep talk because Kahana had said she wanted to leave because she was feeling bad about the challenge, and also Alexis and Candy had had a heated argument earlier in the episode. Batty Davis asked whether Heidi in Closet might have stayed in the competition if RuPaul had done something like that on the episode when Heidi left. Brooklyn said that Heidi probably would have stayed if RuPaul had done that, and Brooklyn also said that she loves when RuPaul, quote, "pops off." And Brooklyn thought what RuPaul said was really beautiful and empowering, and you don't want to throw away a big opportunity just because you're having a bad day. Caramel asked Brooklyn if she had ever had a moment like that with RuPaul when Brooklyn was preparing to be a judge on Canada's Drag Race. And Brooklyn said that she never spoke to RuPaul about it. However, when Brooklyn came to be a lip-sync assassin on All Stars 6, RuPaul said that Brooklyn was doing a really good job on Canada's Drag Race, but that moment didn't make it to the air. They then talked about Heidi in Closet leaving All Stars 8 a few episodes ago, and Caramel asked if Brooklyn would have done the same thing, or would she have stuck it out and decided to stay in the competition. Brooklyn said that, quote, it's very intense and they keep pushing you, and the longer you're, quote, running on empty, the harder it gets. But Brooklyn said she probably would think about it, but she wouldn't act on it. But then Brooklyn said, quote, I did actually think about it. Brooklyn was asked what moment that was, and Brooklyn said that it was the finale episode, so it's assumed that she was referring to the finale of season 11. Brooklyn explained and said, quote, we were on stage getting critiques and, in my mind, I thought, what if I just walked off right now? I was just so tired and exhausted. It had been really fun, but by the time it got to that point, I didn't know if I had anything left. But then Brooklyn said she's thankful that she did not do that and that she pushed through. They then got to the runway for this week, which was Miss Fill in the Blank. And they said that they really liked Kahana Montrese's look, but it didn't really give busted showgirl because it looked too polished. But Brooklyn, who also competed on season 11 with Kahana, said that Kahana did a good job in the challenge and she had, quote, come so far since season 11 and she's had the only glow up, she's the nicest, sweetest person. Brooklyn also shared a fun fact about Kahana and said that on season 11, when Kahana left to go film Drag Race, she grabbed 2 suitcases that she thought were full of her looks for Drag Race season 11. But then when Kahana got to Drag Race, she opened up her suitcases and realised that she had mistakenly brought 2 of her suitcases that were full of her bodysuits that she had worn for the drag brunches in Las Vegas the night before. And so it's assumed that Brooklyn was saying that Kahana did not have the outfits that she actually needed for season 11. But Brooklyn said that that's why it's been so cool to see Kahana kill it with her looks on All Stars 8. They then got to the part of the episode where Lala Ree won and Kahana and Alexis were in the bottom 2. And Caramel asked the guests how they would pick who to send home and would they base it on track record or would they send home their biggest competitor. Brooklyn said, quote, I think it should go on taking out your strongest competition, but I think right now there's so much backlash from the fans, and that makes it hard for you to be there and to play the game and be a little bit vicious. Caramel then asked Brooklyn whether she thought every entertainer, when they have to choose a lipstick, is always thinking about the perception of the audience, and Brooklyn said, quote, oh, absolutely. They then talked about the runways on Drag Race in general, and whether it affects a queen's placement for that week, or whether it's just based on the challenge performance. BB said, quote, I feel like the runway is a mixed thing for me. And BB said she thinks that nowadays a lot of the girls go on Drag Race and they have got designers to create not only the outfits, but the concepts for the outfits as well. So the queens themselves sometimes do not have any creative input on their looks, which is why we should not base everything on the runway. The episode then ended and Caramel asked BB and Brooklyn what has changed on Drag Race since their seasons or what changes would they like to see in the future. BB said that she would like to see other Drag Race queens appear as guest judges, a bit like on Canada's Drag Race, because they know what it's like to be on the show. And Brooklyn agreed and said she also thought it would be great to have some drag legends who have not been on Drag Race, such as Sherry Vine, Jackie Beat and Hot Chocolate. And it would be great to have a season with just those sorts of queens on Drag Race because they don't care about what they say, and in dressing rooms they're always reading each other for filth, and it would make really good TV if you could get that sort of energy on camera. They then moved on to the Q&A session, and an audience member asked Brooklyn if she would be doing any more music because they really loved Brooklyn's song Queen of the North. Just in case you don't know, on season 2 of Canada's Drag Race, in the finale, the final 3 queens had to write their own verses to Brooklyn's song Queen of the North. And Brooklyn also did a music video for that song which featured Priyanka, who was the winner of season 1 of Canada's Drag Race, as well as Sasha Colby, who was the winner of season 15 of Drag Race US, and that was before Sasha had even been on Drag Race. Anyway, when asked if she would be making any more music, Brooklyn laughed and said, quote, absolutely not. I was forced to do that song. We recorded it as a joke and they made me do a music video. Brooklyn also said that when she was doing press to promote the song, she would say things like, quote, I didn't want to do it, buy it if you want, but I don't even think it's good. And finally, another audience member said that a few weeks ago, when Darian Lake and Mrs. Kasha Davis were at Roscoe's, Darian was, quote, in her season 6 era and was reading everyone down, and Kasha was not having it. The body language was awkward as hell. And the audience member asked if there was any behind the scenes drama. Caramel joked and said that Batty Davis had a big wig on that week and she couldn't see past the wig, but then she said that it seemed like it was a great night from her perspective. Batty also said she didn't see any shade and they had a really good time with Darian and Kasha backstage, but Batty said that sometimes when the queens have to watch the episodes that they're in and they know the outcome, they have to play the game and not spill the outcome. And Batty said they got a lot of comments on the video asking if Darian is always that erratic, and Batty said that that's just what Darian is always like and she's always crazy and fun. Caramel also added that Darian was drinking and having fun, whereas Mrs. Kasha Davis is sober now, so she wasn't drinking, which meant that Kasha was probably a little bit more, quote, in the moment and was listening more intently to what the queens were saying. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 Episode 7. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 8. And the guest this week was Heidi and Closet from Season 12 and All Stars 8. And they also had a sign language interpreter sitting on the side of the stage too. Today we're going to be talking about Heidi calling out Candy Muse for lying, why Alexis Michelle kept Candy Muse in the competition, and Heidi reveals whether she regrets quitting the season. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So before they started watching the episode, Naysha brought up that Heidi had said previously online that she had some things to get off her chest when she was at Roscoe's, and Naysha asked Heidi what she wanted to say. At first, Heidi joked and said, quote, "I'm going to gag you bees," but then she laughed and said she was joking. But Heidi then said it was, quote, "no mystery of what had happened between Heidi and Kahana online and the feud that they had." I did talk about this in a previous video, so make sure you check that out. I'll put a link in the description. But basically, for any of you who don't know, Heidi and Kahana had a feud online and called each other out. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Heidi said that she and Kahana had had a conversation, and Kahana had apologised to Heidi for the things she said. And Kahana was apparently, quote, in her emotions, mainly because the fans weren't taking her seriously. Heidi also said that some people accused Kahana and Candy for being the reason why Heidi quit the show because of the argument that they had had in the workroom. But Heidi said that's not the reason at all, and she said, quote, "I was not happy being there. I felt a sense of overlookedness. It was not conducive for my mental health." Heidi also said she apologised to Kahana and admitted that she could have handled the situation online way better. Heidi added that she and Kahana have agreed to disagree on some things, but they have now moved on and it's all fine. And Heidi said, "Don't send any hate to anyone because it's not right and you should be supporting the queens." They then started watching this week's episode, which was the design challenge, and they talked about Jimbo during the challenge when she was struggling with time management. Heidi was asked if it was true or not, whether Jimbo was just saying that to add some suspense to the episode, but Heidi said Jimbo really is bad at time management and takes a long time to get ready. Host Naysha Lopez, who was also on All Stars 8, said that while they were filming the show, the queens all had to be ready on time. But the queens would just look at Jimbo, and if she was only halfway done, the other queens knew they had plenty of time to get ready because they would have to wait for Jimbo to be ready anyway. Host Caramel then asked Heidi whether she is enjoying watching the show now that she's no longer on it, or does she wish that she was still on the season. Heidi said, quote, "Oh god no, I am so happy I'm not there," and everyone laughed. Heidi added that she really loves Drag Race and it's her favourite show, but when you're on Drag Race, it's a bit like the movie The Wizard of Oz, when you see behind the curtain and realise the wizard isn't actually real and it's, quote, "just a man." And Heidi joked that the man was RuPaul. Host Batty Davis then asked and said, "So what we see on the episode is not what actually happens?" Heidi explained that they film for 10 to 12 hours a day and each episode is 2 days worth of footage because the episode is only an hour long. So obviously not everything is going to be shown. Naysha also asked Heidi if she was told that because she quit, she wasn't going to be allowed to do the fame game. And Heidi said that she was informed by producers that if she left, she would not be eligible for the fame game, but Heidi still decided to leave because she needed to have her happiness, and no prize money was worth her happiness. They then talked more about Heidi quitting All Stars 8 in episode 5, and Heidi said it had always been a dream of hers to win Drag Race, and so leaving the show was one of the hardest things that she's ever done. And Heidi said that the decision for her to leave, quote, tore me up inside, and Heidi also said she had to deal with the depression and anger. But she's now in a much better place and she stands by her decision to leave. Naysha asked if Heidi would ever go back for another All-Stars or a Versus the World season now that she's in a better place, and Heidi said that for All-Stars 8 she didn't check in on herself and she was going through a lot of personal issues at the time. Heidi didn't say exactly what happened, but she mentioned her grandmother passing away and her family falling apart, and Heidi even said that the last time she was with her whole family, her brother pulled a gun on her uncle, and this was a month before filming started. So Heidi said that she was not in a good place when she got the call for All-Stars 8, so if she was offered another chance for another season, she would have to think about it first and make sure she was in a good place, but if she was, then she would go back. Batty Davis then mentioned last week when RuPaul came into the workroom and gave the queens a pep talk and convinced Kahana not to leave the competition. And Batty asked Heidi if RuPaul had done that when she wanted to leave, would Heidi have stayed? Heidi said she wasn't sure if it would have made a difference because she was just really not happy in the competition, but she did say that it might have been enough to make her stay. And Heidi also said she really appreciates being on the show and the opportunities it's given her. They then moved on to the moment in the episode where Raven and Chanel came into the workroom to talk to the queens about their design challenge concepts. And Caramel asked why Raven and Chanel were there instead of RuPaul, and Naysha said that RuPaul had to go do something to do with the Emmys and that's why he wasn't there. They then mentioned that Chanel had been a lip-sync assassin in episode 4 and she lip-synced against Jimbo and won, and she had to reveal that the queens had chosen for Darien Lake to go home. And Heidi spilled some backstage tea about this moment and said that when Chanel won the lip sync, RuPaul is sitting about 30 feet away from the stage. And Chanel then said that the queens have chosen to eliminate, and then she pulled out the lipstick, but she didn't actually say the name out loud. And apparently, without missing a beat, RuPaul acted shocked as usual. And Heidi joked that there's no way that RuPaul could have read the name on the lipstick from that far away, and RuPaul was, quote, acting her ass off. Heidi also said the producers had to ask Chanel to pull the lipstick out again, but this time she needed to say the actual name out loud. But Heidi said that the queens are closer to the stage than RuPaul is, so the queens could probably see the name on the lipstick. So Darien must have known that she was going to be eliminated already, and what we saw in the episode wasn't actually her genuine reaction because she had already seen her name on the lipstick from the first time that Chanel showed the lipstick. And Heidi said that RuPaul was clearly acting her surprise. Caramel then said, quote, "Speaking of acting, how do you feel about Alexis Michelle this season?" And everyone laughed. Heidi then said that Alexis clearly wants to win an Emmy this season, and Naysha added that Alexis is a sweet and sensitive person, and she was genuinely nervous about how the fans would receive her on the season, so every time she was crying it was genuine. But Naysha said that the Drag Race fandom is, quote, so toxic, and that's why the queens are so nervous about everything they do and say on the show, and Heidi agreed. Batty then brought up Reddit, and Heidi said, quote, "Reddit is evil," and they started talking about how so much stuff gets leaked about the seasons on Drag Race on Reddit, and a lot of it turns out to be true, and so someone from production must be leaking this stuff to Reddit. And Naysha said that she had a conspiracy theory that the show deliberately leaks information before the season airs on Reddit to try and, quote, manipulate the audience's perception so that the producers can edit the show according to the fans' perception. They then talked about the moment in episode 5 when Candy confronted Heidi and asked why Heidi had been going around saying that Candy had said that she would eliminate Jimbo, and Heidi said Candy did say that, but Candy denied it and there was a big fight about it. Naysha said that at Roscoe's, they had come up with a theory that perhaps Candy had said something about Jimbo and it was slightly misconstrued by other queens, and that's how this happened. And Heidi shook her head and everyone started laughing. According to Heidi, what actually happened was that Candy had actually said twice that she would eliminate Jimbo, not just one time. And the time that they were discussing in the workroom was when Alexis was present when Candy had said that. However, there was apparently another time when Candy said that, when they were in the car, and Jimbo got out of the car first because she was closest to the door, and apparently Jimbo said something funny to the producers when she got out of the car, and all of the producers laughed. And apparently Candy, Heidi and a few other queens were still sitting in the car, and Candy turned to the other queens in the car and said, quote, "You see, the producers love her. If she ever lands in the bottom, we need to send her home." And apparently Heidi had spoken to the other queens who were also in the car, and they all confirmed that Candy did indeed say that. But they asked Heidi not to mention their names because they'd want to stay out of the drama. Heidi said though that she and Candy had spoken about it and it was all good, and they are currently on tour together for the Haters Roast. And Heidi said that during the tour there was one day when this whole issue came up and Heidi and Candy, quote, barked at each other. And apparently Candy said she didn't lie on the show, and Heidi said, quote, "Oh B, now wait a minute, now I'm going to put all this aside because I love you, but you're not going to sit here and say you didn't lie because you did, period." But Heidi repeated that she and Candy are fine now and they have let it go. They then moved on to the moment when Alexis Michelle, who had won the challenge, had to pick who to send home out of LaLa Ri and Candy Muse, and Alexis chose LaLa Ri to go home. And everyone was shocked because Lala had saved Alexis the week before, and Alexis said that she wouldn't forget that, and they questioned why Alexis went back on what she said. Heidi said that she had had conversations with both Alexis and Lala, and she knew what was, quote, the straw that broke the camel's back. And Heidi didn't want to spill it in case they talked about it in Untucked, but Heidi said that there was a connection between Alexis and Candy, which is probably the reason why Alexis chose to save Candy. Heidi said that apparently Alexis wanted to, quote, change the perception of herself going into All Stars, but according to Heidi, Alexis had 2 good opportunities to show that, but Heidi said, quote, she made the absolute worst decision in both cases. And Heidi said that in her opinion, Alexis made the wrong choice by eliminating Lala, even though she had previously said that she would keep Lala. And just for anyone that doesn't know, Alexis tweeted after the episode saying, quote, "It was an impossible choice, a lose-lose situation, 2 incredible queens who I admire and respect. I made a choice. After sleeping on it, I wished I could have done differently. I'm sorry for disappointing you. People make mistakes. I own this one. No edit, just me." And Caramel brought up this tweet and the audience groaned, and Heidi said, quote, "Don't backpedal, stand by it." And they mentioned that Alexis would be at Roscoe's next week, so they could ask her about it then. Batty Davis then said that Alexis was trying to give herself the upper hand by eliminating Lala, but that decision, quote, smacked her in the ass. And Heidi said that if Alexis had sent Candy home instead, the fans would probably be cheering for Alexis and it would have redeemed her. And Heidi also brought up the moment during the workroom confrontation in episode 5 when Heidi said Candy had said that she would eliminate Jimbo, and Heidi brought Alexis into the conversation to confirm what Heidi was saying. And at first, Alexis confirmed what Heidi said, but then Alexis seemed to change her mind. And Heidi said that if Alexis had just picked a side during the argument, it would have come off better than the back and forth that Alexis did. Heidi also said that Alexis wanted to be in an alliance with Heidi, Candy and Jimbo, and apparently Alexis wrote a note to all of them at the beginning of the season saying that they should be in an alliance. And it's assumed that Heidi was inferring that that's the reason why Alexis decided to keep Candy in the competition instead of Lala. They then moved on to Untucked, and during Untucked, Alexis spoke to both Lala and Candy privately. And when Alexis spoke to Lala, Alexis asked Lala how she would feel if Alexis chose to eliminate her. And Naysha said it was obvious after that Alexis was going to pick Lala's lipstick to go home. Naysha also joked and said that although what Alexis did was shady, Naysha loved it because it made good TV. And Naysha said, quote, "The bee has lied, she backtracks, she's doing the effing most, I mean I'm not mad at it." And Heidi agreed and said that they were all talking about it, which shows that it was a memorable moment and the queens are there to make good TV. And Naysha said, quote, "It's a TV show before it's a competition, period." And Naysha also made the point that the fans forget to differentiate between the queen on TV and the queen in real life, and that when the queens are at live shows, that's who they really are, and on TV they are sort of playing a character that isn't necessarily who they are. Caramel then brought up the part of Untucked where they show the lip sync assassin getting ready for the lip sync, and Caramel asked Heidi what it was like because Heidi was a lip sync assassin on All Stars 6. And Heidi said that the queens are given the song 2 days before the lip sync, and they bring multiple outfits to wear just in case they have any issues with the other outfits. And Heidi shared a fun fact and said that when her season 12 sister Jada Essence Hall was a lip sync assassin on All Stars 6, Jada had left the wig that she wanted to wear in Heidi's apartment. So Jada called Heidi and asked if they could record their phone conversation, and Heidi said yes, and then Jada called her back and they had to pretend as if they were speaking for the first time, and Heidi ended up sending Jada's wig to the studio by Uber. However, none of this was shown in the episode. And finally, they moved on to the audience Q&A, and someone asked why there has been no reading challenge so far on All Stars 8, or was it just not aired? Heidi said that on the episodes that she was there for, there was no reading challenge, and Heidi said when she walked in on episode 1, she had all of her reads ready in her gap tooth purse that she was carrying, but there wasn't a reading challenge. And Nasia said because she was cast last, she knew who was going to be on the season, and she had prepared reads for all of the queens. Caramel also said that Darian Lake had said while she was at Roscoe's that there was no reading challenge, but Caramel said perhaps they would do a reading challenge in the next few episodes. And Nasia said she thinks they might have taken out the reading challenge because it can be a bit hit and miss. And Heidi said that on Canada vs. the World, the reading challenge was really bad. And on season 12, because the queens all got on so well, the reading challenge was also not very good, which is why they didn't air it, even though they filmed it. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 8 Episode 8. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 9. And the guests this week were Lala Ree and Alexis Michelle, who both competed on All Stars 8. If you want to watch the full viewing party on Roscoe's channel, I'll put a link in the description. Today we're going to be talking about Alexis Michelle admitting that she made a mistake by sending Lala Ree home, some backstage tea about an off-camera conversation between Jimbo and Alexis, and Alexis calls out Candy Muse's roast jokes for crossing the line. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Before the episode started, they mentioned that on All Stars 8, Alexis had said that she had a crush on Lala Ree, and host Nasia Lopez clarified that it was just a coincidence that Alexis and Lala were booked for the same Roscoe's viewing party and it wasn't done on purpose. And Lala also clarified that she and Alexis have never got together because Lala has a boyfriend already. They then started the episode and they talked about what happened in last week's episode when Alexis sent home Lala, even though Lala had saved Alexis the week before. Nasia said that Alexis had been vocal since last week's episode that she regrets her choice, and for example on Twitter, Alexis said that she should have sent Candy home instead, and Nasia asked Alexis how she felt about her decision. Alexis said, quote, "I wrestled with it before I made the decision. I wrestled with it the second I had the lipstick in my hand. I wrestled with it after a couple good nights sleep. I was literally like, what the F did I do?" Alexis went on to explain that Drag Race is designed to take queens out of their comfort zones and throw you off your centre and mess up your inner compass. And Alexis said that she owns the fact that other people can stay true to their compass easier than Alexis did, and Alexis said she should have kept Lala and said, quote, "I wish I could change it." However, Alexis did say that that wasn't a dig at Candy either, but Alexis thinks that it was, quote, "wrong that the producers make the queens eliminate each other." And Alexis said that people always say to the queens that they signed up for this, but Alexis said that the queens didn't know what format the show would take, and apparently some queens thought that they might adopt the format of All Stars 7 with no eliminations. But Alexis said if she could go back, she would change her decision and she would send Candy home instead of Lala, and she added, quote, "and I have to live with that and I'm sorry." Nasia then added that in her opinion, if production wants a certain queen to go home, they will make sure that it happens. And Nasia suggested that if Alexis had pulled Candy's lipstick instead of Lala's, production might have said that Alexis lost the lip sync and gone with the group vote instead because the group voted for Lala to go home. Nasia also made the point that there were a lot of trolls on the internet who attack the queens who are just putting on a show, and you should never attack the queens because it's a TV show at the end of the day. Naysha then asked Lala if she knew she was going home that episode or whether she thought that she had a chance to stay. Lala said, quote, "I wasn't surprised, I had felt like it was my time." Lala said that she knew that the group would vote for Lala to go instead of Candy because Candy was more popular than Lala. And Lala also did have a feeling that Alexis had pulled her lipstick. But Lala disagreed with what Naysha had said about production rigging the outcome because Lala said that when she got eliminated, everyone on the production team came out and gave Lala a standing ovation. And they said that they were all, quote, shocked that Lala was leaving, and Lala implied as though her elimination was not part of production's plan. Host Caramel then said that Lala had joked that she would have eliminated Alexis 2 episodes ago instead of keeping her. Lala laughed and said it was just a joke and she still would have kept Alexis because, quote, "I'm all about competition, I want to beat the best of the best." Lala then joked that Kahana Montrese had been in the bottom about 50 times by that episode and said, quote, "I love my sister, but damn girl, let's go. Pack up your bleep bee," and everyone in the audience laughed. Alexis then referred back to what Naysha had said about production rigging the outcome, and Alexis said that there was, quote, "some truth to that," but Alexis said that they had kept Kahana around for a long time and implied as though that went against what production wanted. Batty then said that both Candy and Alexis are from New York, and Batty asked if that factored into why Alexis decided to save Candy by sending home Lala. Alexis said that Candy was the person that she had the longest history with because they come from the same place and they have similar experiences. Alexis then said, quote, "I have 2 things to F my NDA and F the NRA," and the audience cheered. And Lala said that she didn't know what the NRA was, and the audience laughed, and they explained that it meant the National Rifle Association. Alexis then implied as though there was a lot that was cut from the episodes, and also her conversation in the workroom with Candy when Alexis was deciding who to send home. And Alexis said that there was also some, quote, "intimate things" that she shared with Lala and Candy that weren't shown in the episode, and that there was a, quote, "genuine closeness between the girls in the cast." And if Alexis had sent Candy home instead of Lala, it would have, quote, "felt like a betrayal" because she had some emotional bonds with Candy. They then talked about the challenge on this week's episode, which was a comedy roast of Judge Carson Kressley. Alexis was asked about her infamous roast of Michelle Visage from season 9 when Alexis painted herself green and did not do very well in the challenge. And Alexis spilled some backstage tea about her roast from season 9 and said that the queens get a session with the comedy writers to work on their jokes. And Alexis implied as though the writers made Alexis think that her jokes were funny. Alexis also said that she had lots of note cards with her jokes written on them, and apparently she put all the cards in order, but when the queens go up on stage, they're not allowed to take the cards with them, and production take the cards and put them on stage for the queens. But Alexis implied as though production may have put her cards out of order because when Alexis got to the podium, her cards were all out of order, which is what threw her off at the beginning and made her, quote, "flustered." However, Alexis did say that she knew her jokes were not the best, but a lot of it comes down to delivery. Naysha then brought up a moment from a few episodes ago when Heidi said that Candy had said that she would send home Jimbo, and then Heidi brought Alexis into the conversation, and Alexis at first said that Candy did say that, but then seemed to change her mind, and Alexis said that Candy did not say that. And Naysha asked Alexis what really happened. And Alexis said, quote, "I'm glad you're asking me about this because this is one I'm ready to spill the full tea on." Alexis explained that although it did look like she was backpedaling in the episode, there was some, quote, "genuine confusion in Alexis's head." Alexis said that when Heidi asked her if she remembered Candy saying that about Jimbo, Alexis genuinely didn't remember. But since then, Heidi has, quote, refreshed Alexis's memory of when the conversation happened. Apparently, there was a queen tent outside the workroom where production would put the queens when production needed to do other things. Alexis explained that according to Heidi, Alexis was one day at the front of the tent and the other queens were at the back of the tent, which was a few feet away. And Heidi said that Alexis must have heard what Candy was saying, and Alexis said it was, quote, very possible, but she just couldn't remember. However, Alexis said what she does remember is that one day Heidi was having a moment to herself and Jimbo went to go and check on Heidi. And then after that, Jimbo went to Alexis and said, quote, "I feel really weird." Heidi was upset and she said that Candy said that if I, referring to Jimbo, land in the bottom, I'm going to be out, or that Jimbo is coming for me. And Jimbo asked Alexis if Alexis had heard Candy say that. And Alexis didn't remember the conversation that had happened in the Queen tent, so she said to Jimbo that she hadn't heard Candy say anything like that. But apparently what Alexis did say was, quote, "But I wouldn't be surprised if Candy did say something like that." And Alexis said that it's no shade to Candy, but Candy is a fierce competitor and she is ready to play a tougher game than Alexis. And Alexis said she realises that she's, quote, "too soft for reality television." But Alexis summarised and said that the full tea was that she didn't remember hearing Candy say that about Jimbo, but she did remember the conversation that she had with Jimbo. And when it all came up in the workroom, it did not, quote, "feel like it was my place to bring up an off-camera private conversation that Alexis had had with Jimbo, which is why Alexis didn't want to talk about it. And that's also why it seemed like Alexis was backpedaling in the episode. They then watched the Carson Kressley roast, which was this week's Maxi Challenge. And Alexis said that although they only showed 2 minutes per queen, they actually each performed for 5 minutes. And Alexis implied as though some parts may have been cut out to make it look a certain way. Nasia said that everyone did really well, but she asked who else Alexis thought did really well. And Alexis said that she really liked Jessica's performance and felt like Jessica walked the right line between cutting people but also being playful and silly. But Alexis said that she felt as though Candy, quote, "crossed the line a few times," and that some of it was cut out, but apparently, quote, "Candy went hard." Nasia asked Alexis if she could give some examples, and Alexis said, quote, "I think what she said about me was ugly. I think it was ugly to say that in front of the judges. I think that was too far." And Alexis mentioned the joke that Candy made about Jimbo that didn't get a laugh, and Candy said, quote, "it's a roast." And apparently there were other moments like that, but they got cut out. They then moved on, and Alexis shared a backstage moment that she had with RuPaul when RuPaul fixed Alexis's wig for the Forensic Queens challenge, and Alexis said she really cherished that moment. And Nasia also shared a moment she had with RuPaul, and apparently RuPaul didn't know any of the queens' names and just said, quote, "that one in the silver," and pointed at the queens. And Nasia joked that RuPaul is, quote, "no spring chicken," and there are so many queens it's hard to remember all of their names. And Alexis said that you, quote, "have to exercise your brain, and if you're being fed what's happening constantly, you don't have to exercise your brain." And people started laughing, and Nasia said that it was true, and we all know that RuPaul has an earpiece and gets fed information from the producers. They then got to the moment in the episode where Jimbo was announced as the winner and all the other queens were in the bottom. And then Jimbo had to lip sync against Silky Nutmeg Ganache and Jimbo won. And just when they were talking about who won the lip sync, Silky made a surprise appearance at Roscoe's and got a big cheer from the crowd. Silky gave out some merchandise including t-shirts with her and Jimbo from the lip sync. Silky got a mic and said, quote, "and I'm happy they put all the words that Jimbo mostly knew." And Silky said that for the first half of the song, Silky was pointing at Jimbo because, quote, "she didn't know the words." They then got to the part in the episode when Alexis got eliminated and everyone clapped for Alexis. And Nasia asked both Alexis and Lala what their thoughts were about their time on All Stars 8. Lala said that she had a really fun time and enjoyed being on the season. However, Alexis said that for her, quote, "fun is not the word." And Alexis said she's really happy to be part of the cast of All Stars 8 because a lot of the queens were not, quote, "the obvious choice for an All Stars season because they were not as popular as some other queens, but they all still came and did a great job." However, Alexis said that she had never been asked to do All Stars before she was asked to do All Stars 8, and she implied as though she felt like the show would never allow her to win. But after the first episode, Alexis thought that maybe she had a chance to win after they, quote, "buttered her up," but then after that, Alexis did some, quote, "crazy effing stupid bleep, so it wasn't all fun for me." They then moved on to the audience Q&A, and an audience member said that they had been at one of Alexis's shows many years ago, and her act used to involve a lot of nudity, and they even showed a photo, however you couldn't see the photo on camera. But the audience member asked whether there are some raunchy things that Alexis used to do in her shows, but she can't do anymore since she's been on Drag Race because she's now much better known. And Alexis said she used to do a lot of stuff that she doesn't do anymore, and someone in the audience shouted out that Sherry Pie was the one who recorded the video of Alexis, but it wasn't quite clear what they exactly said. And Naysha said that they didn't want to talk about Sherry. But Alexis said that consent is very important, and Alexis said that when she was a young person, she had a quote traumatic experience, and that's why consent is so important. And Alexis hopes that she never made anyone feel uncomfortable in her shows, and the stuff that they used to do in the past, they don't do those sorts of things anymore. They then watched Untucked, and they got to the moment when Alexis said to Jessica that she couldn't pick her lipstick, but then she did. But Alexis said that she didn't mean it like that, and what she really meant was it would be hard for her to pick Jessica's lipstick because she really didn't want to. Alexis also said that what she, quote, hates the most about the edit on this season is that the show hasn't shown any of the relationships between the queens. And Alexis said that Jessica was the person she was closest to out of all of the cast, but you wouldn't know that from the edit. An audience member off camera then started shouting something, but you couldn't hear exactly what they said, but it sounded like they were saying that Alexis was, quote, backpedaling. Alexis then said that she did not manipulate anyone and she did not make promises to anyone, and the audience member then started shouting something else, and Alexis said, quote, I would love to see how you handle the difficulty of being there. And Naysha then stepped in and said that Drag Race is a television show before it is a competition, and it was clearly rhetorical what Alexis said to Jessica. And Naysha said to the audience member to stop attacking the queens, and Naysha then said, quote, I've already given you way too much time right now, this was really unnecessary. If you want to talk to her personally, you can do that, but you're not going to do it on my time on this show. And everyone in the audience started clapping. And finally, they went back to the audience for more Q&A, and an audience member asked whether they felt like Candy Muse relies more on her social game rather than her talent. Alexis said that Candy is a fierce competitor and she played the game at every angle. And Alexis also said that Candy, quote, played the game better than I did, and she doesn't blame Candy for any of that. And Naysha said that Candy knows the power of her own voice and she would never let the production get one over on her, and if she wasn't ready, she would make production wait until she was, unlike some other queens. And Lala said that even since season 13, Candy is very talented and she's also very good at playing Drag Race. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 episode 9. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 episode 10. And the guests this week were Jessica Wilde, who was on All Stars 8, as well as Priyanka, who won Canada's Drag Race Season 1. Today we're going to be talking about why Jessica Wilde made production staff go and get different shoes for the makeover, some backstage tea involving Priyanka and a borrowed sex toy on Canada's Drag Race, and Naysha reveals that Jessica got so drunk while filming her promo shoot for All Stars 8 that she forgot things. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started out by talking about Alexis Michelle's elimination last week, and Jessica said that from the start of the season, Jessica decided that she would vote however she wanted and she didn't need alliances. And the reason she decided to vote for Alexis to go home was because Alexis got the worst critiques from the judges after the roast. So when Alexis said to Jessica in Untucked that episode that she wouldn't vote for Jessica, Jessica joked and said, quote, I don't care because I'm going to vote for you. But Jessica made it clear that she was joking and said that she and Alexis are good friends. Naysha then said that Jessica worked really hard on All Stars 8 and hardly ever slept because she was always working, and Naysha asked what the hardest part of being on Drag Race is. Priyanka said that for her, the hardest part of being on Drag Race was, quote, having to masturbate to your thoughts, and everyone laughed. Priyanka then added that on her season, other queens did bring some adult material with them for that purpose, but none of them shared it with Priyanka. But Priyanka said that Juicebox, who was the first eliminated queen on her season, did bring a fleshlight with her, which she didn't use, and apparently one of the production staff then came to Priyanka's hotel room and gave her the fleshlight from Juicebox. However, from the way that Priyanka said it, it wasn't clear if Priyanka was joking about this story or not, so I asked Juicebox myself whether it was true or not, and Juicebox confirmed that this was totally true. Priyanka also said that on her season, the only queen who would give people compliments was Lemon, and apparently the other queens kept to themselves and didn't want to show any weakness, and Priyanka joked that Canadians are crazy. Priyanka also added that they had a therapist on set for the queens, but apparently the therapist was also, quote, not there, and Priyanka implied as though the therapist didn't really care about the queens' issues. They then moved on, and Naysha brought up that in the second episode of All Stars 8, most of the queens voted for Naysha to go home, but Jessica voted for Kahana to go home, and Naysha asked Jessica if Kahana was angry about that. Jessica said that she never had any alliances or promises with anyone in the competition, but she is really close to Naysha and they have been friends for years, so Jessica was never going to vote for Naysha. And Jessica brought up Ralaska Talks, which is Roxy Andrews, Detox and Alaska from season 5 and All Stars 2, and Jessica said that if Ralaska Talks can save each other, why can't she save one of her friends? And someone in the audience shouted out, quote, "What are you saying about Ralaska Talks?" And it turned out that Detox was in the audience, but you couldn't see her on camera and everyone laughed. But anyway, Jessica then talked about voting for Kahana to go home in episode 2, and apparently Kahana was, quote, upset with Jessica for voting for her. And Jessica told Kahana that the reason she wanted to keep Naysha was because Naysha hadn't had the chance to win a challenge, whereas Kahana did because Kahana had won the challenge in the first week. And apparently Kahana was angry at Jessica for saying that and said, quote, "I didn't come here to win one challenge, I came here to win the competition." And Jessica said that she apologised to Kahana because she hadn't thought about it in that way and she didn't realise that it would hurt Kahana's feelings. Naysha then joked and said that Kahana wasn't there to just win one time, she was there to be in the bottom 3 times. And everyone laughed and Naysha made it clear that she was only joking and that she's friends with Kahana. And Jessica then joked that what Naysha said was wrong because Kahana was actually in the bottom 4 times, and everyone laughed again. They then moved on to the challenge for this week, which was the makeover challenge where the queens had to make over lesbians. And Naysha said that the queens can bring their own costumes for the makeover challenge, or they can make them while on set. And Naysha asked Jessica what she did. Jessica revealed that she spoke to a designer and said that she wanted to do an 80s theme and asked the designer to make one costume for Jessica and then make another outfit in a larger size which Jessica could then alter to fit the person. But then when the outfit arrived to the hotel, it was just the fabric and not the full outfit because apparently the designer had run out of time to make the outfits. And so Jessica ended up sewing the outfits herself. Caramel then asked Priyanka whether she had helped her fellow season sister Jimbo get ready for the season, and did she know that Jimbo was going to be on All Stars. Priyanka said that she did know because she was on tour at the time with Jimbo, Candy and Heidi, and all 3 of them got the call at different times and they all told Priyanka secretly. But Priyanka said the only person she did help was Candy, and she gave Candy some extra wigs because Candy needed some more wigs. And Priyanka said that Jimbo didn't need any help and that Jimbo's had a great glow up since her season. Jessica then said that Jimbo had admitted that she had stopped drinking and partying because people had told Jimbo that she was looking old. And apparently those comments really got to Jimbo, and Jimbo felt like she needed to stop partying because it was aging her. And Naysha made the point that it's never okay to tell the queens they look old or to insult the queens because it can really mess with the queens' heads. And Priyanka agreed and said that she also had stopped drinking because she found that when she was hungover, the negative comments online would get to her more and affected her badly because she was hungover. Naysha then told a funny story involving Jessica and drinking and said that when they shot the promos for All Stars 8, all the queens were doing the photo shoots at different times. And apparently Jessica was really nervous because she doesn't like photo shoots, and Naysha and a few of the other queens had already finished their photo shoots and they were drinking. And Jessica then asked Naysha to get her some shots to try and make Jessica feel more relaxed. And so apparently Jessica drank quite a bit, and Naysha joked that, quote, Jessica was definitely drunk when she was doing her promo shoot. Jessica then joked that when the promos came out, Jessica asked why there was a, quote, ugly Jessica Wilde signature on the photo, and she asked who put that there. And apparently Jessica had forgotten that she was the one that did the signature, but because she was so drunk when she did it, she just scribbled it down and it looked really bad. Naysha also said that she actually wrote the signature for 3 of the other queens because they didn't like their own handwriting, but Naysha didn't say who the 3 queens were. They then talked more about the makeover challenge this week, and Caramel asked how long the queens had to get ready. Jessica said that once they had done the makeover for their partners, they then had only an hour and 20 minutes to get themselves ready, which wasn't enough time. And Jessica said that the queens were, quote, angry about that. Jessica also spilled some backstage tea and said that her makeover partner had really small feet and none of the shoes in the workroom fit her. And Candy's partner was also struggling to walk in the heels that were provided. So apparently Jessica made the production staff go and find different shoes for the queens because it was dangerous for the queens to walk in shoes they didn't feel comfortable in and they might, quote, break a leg. And Jessica said that she went to the producers and said, quote, can you help me please? I need her size for her to walk. I don't give an F if you're going to send me home, but I want her to feel good, and they helped us. They then got to the moment in the episode when Candy won the challenge, and that meant that Jessica and Jimbo were in the bottom. And Naysha asked if Jessica felt confident that Candy was going to save her by sending Jimbo home, and Jessica said, quote, I like to be fair, and she explained that Jimbo had a better track record, so she knew that Candy was likely to keep Jimbo and send home Jessica. And they then showed the part of the episode where Candy chose to eliminate Jessica, and everyone stood up and clapped for Jessica. Naysha then got everyone to also clap for Priyanka, who was the lip sync assassin this week, and she won the lip sync. And Naysha then asked Priyanka what her experience was like as a lip sync assassin. Priyanka said that she was really excited because this was the first time she'd ever met RuPaul, and apparently RuPaul and Priyanka had quite a lot of back and forward conversation which was cut out of the episode. But Priyanka was surprised that RuPaul seemed to know who she was and engaged Priyanka a lot in conversation. Priyanka also spilled some interesting backstage tea, and she said that she knew that the producers weren't really looking at the Canadian queens to be lip sync assassins, and so when Priyanka was on tour, she heard that one of the queens who was supposed to be a lip sync assassin had to drop out. And Priyanka then called the producers and said that she would love to be a lip sync assassin. But apparently they said no and that they were already full. And so a week later, Priyanka did a follow-up and called the producers again and asked if they needed a lip sync assassin. And then the next day, Priyanka received an email from them telling her to come to LA quickly because they wanted her to be a lip sync assassin. And Priyanka said that if you don't ask in life, you don't get, and that's a mantra that she's always stood by. They then moved on to the audience Q&A, and an audience member asked about Drag Race Mexico and what their thoughts were on it, especially Naysha and Jessica because they are fellow Spanish speakers. And they both said that it was great representation for Spanish-speaking queens to have a franchise in Spanish. But Naysha said that Valentina, who is one of the hosts, had been criticised by some people because her first language is not Spanish because Valentina is of Mexican origin but was born in the US. And Naysha said that Valentina was doing a great job and it doesn't matter whether Spanish is her first language or not. And Naysha added that people should give Valentina the credit she deserves for making the effort to learn the language and also promote Latina culture. Another audience member then said that in the earlier seasons of Drag Race, Latinas were often made fun of because of their mannerisms and that they were always the butt of the joke, and they asked how Latina representation on Drag Race has changed from the earlier seasons versus now. Naysha then said, quote, the show would treat the queens a certain kind of way, and as a result, the audience would do the same or piggyback off that. And Naisha said that there was always a queen from Puerto Rico on the earlier seasons, and the biggest issue was the language barrier. And the queens weren't understanding the jokes and weren't understanding the comedy, and because of that, they got sent home. And Naisha said that the toxic part of the fan base then went along with that and said that the queens weren't talented because they got sent home early. But Naisha made the point that a lot of the Puerto Rican queens do amazing and big production shows in Puerto Rico, and Latina queens are some of the most talented queens in the world, but that wasn't showcased on Drag Race. Naisha also said that it had changed now, and the queens like Jessica being on more recent seasons has helped to change the perception of Latina queens, even if they struggle with the language. And Jessica said she used to get very embarrassed about speaking English, but now she doesn't care and says that people should make an effort to understand her because that is part of who Jessica is, and you shouldn't be ashamed just because English isn't your first language. And finally, an audience member said that both Jessica and Priyanka had been in the Drag Race universe for several years now, and asked how being part of Drag Race has changed the queens' identities both in and out of drag. Priyanka said that out of drag, she now feels sexier ever since she won the show, and Priyanka mentioned that Bob the Drag Queen once tweeted that Priyanka was the, quote, trade of the season. And Priyanka said that after that, she had a lot more confidence to, quote, go on Grindr and have so many threesomes. And Priyanka joked that she had a, quote, dark era right after she won, when she was, quote, wild and free, because she had just been dumped, and so she ended up having a lot of hookups. But Priyanka said that it was a fun time, and she was just joking by calling it a dark era. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 Episode 10. Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 Episode 11. And the guests this week were Jimbo and Candy Muse, who are both finalists on All Stars 8. Today we're going to be talking about why Candy refused to eliminate Jimbo, Naisha reveals backstage tea about an unaired confrontation in the workroom between all the queens, and Candy says that she was, quote, bored during the season and comes clean about why she stirred up the situation between Heidi and Jimbo. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So they started off by talking about the end of last week's episode, which was when Candy was in the top and chose to eliminate Jessica instead of Jimbo. And Naisha said that Candy had received a lot of hate online for eliminating Jessica, but people were also saying, quote, you literally just gave the crown to Jimbo. And Naisha asked Candy what her thought process was. Candy said that she had just watched a TikTok the night before, which was Monet Exchange and Naomi Smalls, who said it was a dumb decision for her to keep Jimbo. And Candy said, quote, here's the thing, if I'm going to win, I'm going to win whether Jimbo is there or not. Candy also said that the amount of challenge wins you have does not mean anything, and she used Shea Coulee as an example because on All Stars 5, Shea had 2 challenge wins, but Miss Cracker had 3 challenge wins, but Shea ultimately still won the season. Candy also said that she and Jimbo had a pact even before the season started that they would save each other, and the two of them are really close friends. So Candy said that regardless of the prize money, she would never break a pact and send home a close friend. And Candy said, quote, I don't know how you bees roll, but I don't roll like that. Candy also brought up that people had told her that Naomi Smalls sent Manila home in All Stars 4 and it didn't affect Naomi's career, or Pangina sent Jimbo home on UK vs The World and it also didn't affect their careers. And Candy said, quote, I am a plus-size brown man. I promise you, if I would have sent Jimbo home, it would have affected my career. Candy also said that she's not stupid, and when she was deciding which lipstick to pick, it did cross her mind that she could send Jimbo home and get rid of a big competitor. But ultimately, Candy said she's going to vote however she wants, and when she sent James Mansfield home, she did that because she wanted James to go, and the same applied for Jessica, that it was just her time to go. And Candy finished by saying that she has to live with the choices that she makes on Drag Race, whereas the audience get to just go about their daily lives and not worry about the consequences, but for the queens it can really affect their careers and their bookings. They then moved on, and Naysha mentioned the reading challenge, which happened at the beginning of the episode. And Naysha said that a lot of jokes were cut and asked the others if they wanted to reveal any of the reads that got cut. Candy revealed that she didn't actually have any reads prepared for the reading challenge, so when they were in the van going to set that morning, Candy asked Jimbo to give her some reads. And Jimbo apparently gave Candy so many of her reads that when it was time for Jimbo to do the reading challenge, she kind of, quote, choked and didn't know what to say, but they cut that out of the episode. They then moved on, and Caramel said that they had the workroom walkthroughs with RuPaul when the queens said what they were going to do for the talent show. And then RuPaul revealed that the top 2 queens this week would have the chance to double, triple, or quintuple their points, and Caramel asked how they felt about that. Naysha said, quote, rigor mortis, which is a reference to what Alyssa Edwards said in All Stars 2 when she said that it was rigged. Naysha also said that for her, it was clearly a way for production to, quote, control the narrative because it gives the top 2 queens a massive advantage with the votes. Naysha also spilled some backstage tea and said that before the reading challenge, the queens actually sat down on the couch and did a kind of mini reunion, and they all hashed out their issues from the season, but this was all cut from the episode. Naysha also said that, quote, everyone argued, and at first they brought up Heidi because she was not there because she quit the competition, and Naysha had spoken to Heidi on the phone briefly and got a gist of what happened when Heidi left the competition, and so Naysha, quote, played devil's advocate and brought it up to the other queens, particularly Candy. Naysha said she was really annoyed that they cut all of this out because it was so good, and they went through everything such as Heidi quitting, but also LaLa Ri confronting Alexis Michelle about sending her home, and apparently that confrontation was better than the one that they used in the episode. The other hosts, Batty and Caramel, then asked what was said on the couch that was so bad that they cut it all. And Naysha said that, quote, Candy and Jimbo are still competing, so things that they say may affect them. But what happened on the couch was basically just arguing back and forward between the queens. Candy then leaned over and whispered something to Naysha, but you couldn't hear what she said, and it's assumed that Candy was reminding Naysha of something, but Candy didn't want to say it herself because she might get in trouble so close to the finale. However, this wasn't confirmed. Naysha then said, quote, basically what happened was that Alexis cried again, and everyone in the audience laughed. Naysha explained that the reason Alexis cried again was because everyone confronted Alexis and said that she got caught up in the game and she made some decisions during the competition that she may regret. Naysha also said that her favourite part of the couch talk was when Alexis said, quote, you know what, Lala, I'm sorry because you know what, I should have sent you home, and then Naysha pointed at Candy, and Naysha said that it was, quote, so good, this is what I came for. Caramel then brought up that Jimbo had got her first lip sync win last week when she lip synced against Silky Nutmeg Ganache, and everyone cheered for Jimbo. Jimbo then said that it was really cool because, quote, Silky had been quite upset with me on Twitter about what I had decided not to say about Pangina. And just in case you don't know, I believe what Jimbo is referring to is during UK vs the World, Pangina sent Jimbo home in the 3rd episode, which was quite a shock, and Jimbo was really upset about her elimination. And then at the reunion for UK vs the World, Jimbo confronted Pangina and said a sort of sarcastic dig to Pangina and said, quote, I laid in bed and I was like, I'm gonna just talk about how bleep that stupid outfit was with her damn ponytails and all those stupid ties. Or I'm gonna talk about how bleep she looked in that dumb polka dot look. Or I'm going to talk about what a stupid bee she is. But then Ru said, release to the universe, and that's what I've done, so I'm not going to say those things. And obviously the joke was that Jimbo did say all of those things, and it was kind of a joke but also kind of shady. And at the time, Silky had tweeted after the episode criticising Jimbo and said, Pangina should have slapped the bleep out of that girl. How can you call someone a stupid bleep? Read her garments like she wasn't killing. You gave up and got eliminated. Don't come for my black ass for taking up for a POC. Hashtag drag race. And so it seemed like Silky was not happy with Jimbo for those comments that Jimbo had made about Pangina. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Jimbo said that Silky was very upset with her, and Jimbo had not spoken to Silky since then, apart from when she wrote to Silky saying she was sorry, and that they were sisters and they'll get over it when they're on the road together. And so when Jimbo saw that the lip sync assassin was Silky, she was a bit gagged. But they decided to dance together, and Jimbo said it was a quote silent agreement, and I felt it in that moment, and we just decided to have fun together, and it felt really magical. They then talked about the talent show on this week's episode, and Batty brought up the fact that many of the queens did original songs as their talent. Candy said she had seen online that many people were kind of complaining about the fact that there were so many original songs, but Candy explained that creating an original song is not easy. And on top of that, you have to create your own choreography and also teach it to the backing dancers because the queens are responsible for bringing their own choreography. And the queens only get about an hour with the dancers to get it all sorted. Candy also made the point that the queens prepared their talent show numbers for the beginning of the season because usually the talent show is at the beginning. And so the fact that it came at the end of the season meant that some of the references in the talent show numbers did not really line up with what had happened throughout the season. Naysha also spilled some backstage tea about the talent show and said that there is a producer called Mandy, and during Kahana's talent show, while Kahana was doing a backflip, Mandy shouted no. And Kahana was startled and kind of mad because it's dangerous to do that when someone is doing a backflip, and apparently they had a quote full blown out argument. And Kahana said quote, "What the F, why did you effing do that?" And they were arguing back and forward. However, Naysha didn't say why Mandy had stopped Kahana, but it may have been because they needed to change the camera angles or something like that, but that's just a guess. But Naysha did say that's why things like the talent show take so long to film, because each contestant does the talent twice, plus there are breaks in filming and things like that, and the talent show took around 4.5 hours to film in total. Caramel then said, quote, "I find that suspicious. Kahana is involved with another argument. She loves that this season," and people in the audience gasped and laughed. And Caramel then brought up the moment in episode 5 where Kahana confronted Heidi about the snatch game, and then Heidi brought Candy and Alexis into the conversation. And Heidi claimed that Candy had said she was coming for Jimbo and wanted to send her home. And Caramel asked Candy and Jimbo what that situation was like in the room. Candy said that the whole situation went on for about an hour and a half, even though it was only shown for a few minutes, and you can tell that because the queens had no makeup on at the beginning, and by the end they all had a full face on. Candy then went on and said that she has stayed quiet all season about this situation, and Candy then said that she was going to spill the real tea on this. Candy then said, quote, "So we were bored. I was bored on set." And apparently Candy went to Jimbo one day and said that because Candy was bored, she was going to tell the other girls that Jimbo is competition and imply as though they should send her home. And Jimbo told Candy not to say that to the girls because they might actually do it, but Candy said she was still going to say it. And then one day when the queens were in the van, Candy jokingly said, quote, "Jimbo is big competition, get rid of her." Candy said that everyone in the van all nodded their heads and agreed with what Candy was saying, apart from maybe Heidi, who was more surprised. And so that's why Candy found it, quote, interesting that when everyone was calling Candy out, none of them admitted that they had actually agreed with what Candy had said. But also, the real reason why Candy denied what Heidi was saying during the confrontation is because they were accusing Candy of saying that she was, quote, gunning for Jimbo. But Candy didn't actually say that, and just said that Jimbo is competition and that they should vote her out. Candy also said, quote, "If I was gunning for Jimbo, I could have sent her home last week." Candy also said, quote, "Once Heidi left, in the van ride home that night, there was a queen." And Candy paused and it looked like she wasn't going to say the Queen's name, but then she said, quote, "James Mansfield," and the audience gasped and started laughing. And apparently in the van, James said, quote, "I thought sending Jimbo home was like Fight Club. We all know it, but we just weren't going to say it." And that's why Candy was so confused that the queens all pretended like they knew nothing about the situation, even Alexis, who backtracked during the confrontation, even though Alexis was in the van when Candy said that. Candy did clarify that Heidi has confirmed that she did not quit the season due to this confrontation and that Heidi had, quote, checked out long before that. Candy also said that the queens were bored with the season and that's why she decided to create this conversation, and that every time the queens had an opportunity to make something interesting, it turned into a, quote, sob story. And Candy implied as though it got to the point when the queens were told to cut out the sob stories, and Candy said, quote, let's turn bleep up in here because clearly no one else is going to do it. Candy then went on to say that the queens that she would have kikied with and stirred stuff up with, such as Naysha and Monica, had already been eliminated. And she also said that Jimbo was, quote, compared to her other seasons, was playing nice. Alexis was crying every other weekend. Kasha and Darian were doing nothing. At the end of the day, I was bored, and I told Jimbo that is what I was going to do. Jimbo then said that that's not exactly how it happened, and what actually happened was that Jimbo had asked Candy not to tell people that Jimbo was competition because people might actually eliminate her. And then later, Jimbo spoke to Heidi after they had a bit of a disagreement in Untucked about the fruity patootie look. And apparently Heidi said to Jimbo that they were cool, but Jimbo needed to check in with Candy. And so when Jimbo spoke to Candy, Jimbo said that Heidi had said that Candy was going to eliminate Jimbo, and Candy totally denied saying that. And Candy said, quote, those specific words I never said. If you would have sat there and said, Candy, you said Jimbo's competition, I would have said, oh yeah, but I never said I was gunning for her. Those words did not leave my mouth. And Candy said that this topic did come up in this week's episode when the queens were sat on the couch, although it was all cut from the episode. And Candy also said that if she wanted Jimbo gone, she could have just convinced people to do that, and she wanted to make good TV. Candy also said that after filming, while they were on tour in the UK, Candy did talk to Heidi about the situation, and Heidi accused Candy of lying, and they hashed it all out and they got over it. Candy also made the point that, quote, if you watch back seasons 2, 3, 4 and 5 of Drag Race, the girls were fighting and making iconic television. Tell me something iconic that happened on seasons 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. Nothing. Are we not making TV? Is that what we are? Is that what we represent? And Candy said she needs to go on Big Brother or a show like that. They then moved on and talked about Alexis Michelle crying a lot on All Stars 8, and Naysha joked and said that for her, it wasn't an issue that Alexis cried because she's entitled to her feelings, but the issue was that Alexis would cry while other people were crying and telling their stories, and that it was, quote, bad timing. Caramel then brought up that Alexis had said at Roscoe's that she was really close to Jessica while on set, but their relationship wasn't shown in the edit. And Candy looked confused and said, quote, I don't remember seeing that relationship, but anyways, and everyone laughed. And finally they got on to the Q&A, and someone asked what the queens stole from the set. Candy said that she cut out part of the workroom wall and stole that, and she also stole a lipstick and a crew jacket. But then Candy said that Naysha actually stole lots of stuff, and Naysha also stole a crew jacket, which belonged to one of the PAs. And later, the PA said that they knew one of the queens had stolen it, and they needed it back because their keys were inside. But Naysha said she knew the PA was lying because Naysha had checked and all of the pockets were empty. So Naysha denied stealing the jacket, but then later someone must have told the PA that Naysha had stolen it, and the PA came to Naysha and made Naysha give the jacket back, even though there was nothing in it. And Naysha joked that she had been eliminated and asked if she could keep the jacket, but the PA said no and took it back. Naysha also said that she stole the fabric from the fabric wall and sent it to the designer to make an outfit from, and then when she arrived for press week at the start of the season, Candy arrived and she had an outfit that was made from the fabric. And apparently Naysha's designer had made an outfit using the materials but then gave the outfit to Candy. Naysha also said that all the girls ransacked the makeup walls at the end of the season, and that usually the makeup goes into storage between seasons, which is a waste because it will expire. And apparently the PAs wanted some of the makeup, but they weren't allowed to take it, so Naysha joked that she took the stuff instead and then gave it to the PA so they wouldn't get in trouble. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 episode 11. Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama.
I'm back for another Roscoe's Recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 8 episode 12, which was the season finale. And the guests this week were Mo, Hart and Denali. Today we're going to be talking about why James Mansfield and Monica Beverly Hills have not been at Roscoe's this season, how Naysha fought with producers and managed to get all the queens a paycheck for the Fame Games, and why Candy Muse threatened to quit the finale because of the producers trying to set her up. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So before the episode started, Naysha said that she wanted to address something really quickly, and Naysha said that for the Roscoe's viewing parties, they had everyone at Roscoe's, quote, who wanted to be here. And the audience gasped a bit because it's been talked about a lot online that two queens, namely Monica Beverly Hills and James Mansfield, are the only All Stars 8 queens that have not been at Roscoe's. And in particular, many people have wondered why James wasn't at Roscoe's and wondered whether she wasn't invited. However, Roscoe's have previously confirmed in the comments on other videos that she was invited. Anyway, Naysha said that everyone was invited, and she said, quote, as a person who's been eliminated first on a season, for me to do a viewing party and talk about all the bleep that I did not get to do does not sound fun for me. So maybe possibly the reason why Monica did not want to be here and schedule. And Naysha then said, quote, and James, we invited James. James said she wasn't doing no viewing parties. None. So it wasn't just ours. It's not because she's feuding with me. We are all good, girl. She chose not to do any viewing parties. They then talked about last week's episode, which was the talent show for the Fame Games, and Naysha asked how they felt about the talent show being at the end of the season rather than the beginning. And both Mo and Denali agreed that it works better at the beginning rather than the end. And Caramel said that she thinks that it would work better if all the queens had to lip sync battle for the vote multipliers rather than the top two spinning the wheel. Naysha then asked how the guests felt about the vote multiplier twist. And Mo then said, quote, Bussy Queen said, and everyone laughed, but Mo didn't finish the sentence. And just in case any of you don't know, Bussy Queen is a well-known Drag Race YouTuber, and in her recent video, she talked about the Fame Games website and said that it didn't work properly and had issues with it that could lead to cheating. I'll put a link in the description to Bussy's video so you can go and check it out because the full video was quite interesting. Anyway, back to Roscoe's, and Mo said that she liked the idea of the Fame Games and the talent show because it gives the eliminated queens more exposure and a chance to make more money to pay back how much money they spent on the season. But in terms of the multiplier twist, Mo said, quote, I just think the way they were doing the whole bull bleep was bull bleep. And Denali agreed and said that it was stupid, and it was a bit like All Star 7 All Winners, where they gave them all a bunch of stars at the end so that the producers can, quote, decide what they want. Naysha then said that this is the last time she can give her own personal direct experience from a season, and she said that she felt it was unfair that the queens can slay the Fame Game runways, but then they can spin the wheel and, quote, no matter what happens, this person is going to win. I thought it was a disrespect to the people who vote, I thought it was a disrespect to all the contestants, and to me it just said rigor mortis boots, and everyone clapped. Naysha then spilled some interesting tea, and she said that a lot of people online have called Naysha bitter. However, when Naysha got eliminated, she fought for all of the queens because originally the queens were not getting paid to come back and film the runways for the Fame Games because the show had figured out a way to not pay them. And Naysha said to the producers, quote, absolutely mother effing not, because all the queens had spent their hard-earned money on the season and the designers who also spent so much time on the outfits. And Naysha put her foot down and said no, and then she said, quote, guess what? Every girl got an effing paycheck. You're not going to take advantage of me, and everyone clapped for Naysha. And this is a really good point, and please remember that it's never okay to send hate to the queens or leave mean comments about them. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, so please enjoy the show passively and be mindful of what you post online, including in the comments on this video. Anyway, they then moved on and started talking about the top two, which are Jimbo and Candy Muse. And Mo said, quote, I just want to know why they bought an international B to an American season. That's my only question. And some people gasped in the audience. And Mo continued and said, quote,
only because Canada versus the World was just before this one, just saying. She got chopped on my last one, referring to UK versus the World, and then she's here. The same winning talent that she did got her certified in the top. And it's assumed Mo was referring to Jimbo's ghost character, which she did for her talent show on UK versus the World, and then Jimbo wore it again in the lip sync that she won against Silky Nutmeg Ganache. But Mo added that Jimbo, quote, did it right, and said that Jimbo spent a lot of money on the season, and the designer she used charges a minimum of, quote, 6 racks per outfit, which means $6,000. And Naysha added that on set, she asked Jimbo about one of her outfits, but she didn't specify which one, and Jimbo said that it had cost $7,000 for just that one outfit alone. Denali then said, quote, if you're somebody that gets casted on that show and you realise that you're the first of a certain season or a certain series, you're probably going to be favoured a bit. Especially if it's a queen's third time competing, you're going to spend a lot more money. And Mo said, quote, I mean, I did, referring to UK versus the World. And Mo then said, quote, and then they crowned that British bee, and I said, well, it is a British network show, that's fine. And then Caramel said that Mo had a big influence that season, and she mentioned Mo's light runway that she did on UK versus the World, and then after they did that category on All Stars 7, and everyone clapped for Mo. They then moved on and talked about this week's finale challenge, which was that Jimbo and Candy performed an original track that was written by Leland, which is quite different to previous All Stars seasons when the queens usually write their own lyrics. And Mo and Denali both said they thought it was a bit strange that the tracks were written for them. And Naysha said how it worked was the top 3 queens were asked to submit songs that represent their drag, and then Leland would use that to create the songs for the top 2. And Naysha said, quote, Jessica, because they didn't know what was going to happen, and Naysha looked at the audience and everyone started laughing. And it's assumed that the joke was that Naysha was implying that the show did know that Jessica was not going to make it to the final 2, but they still asked her to give them some music that represents her. Anyway, Naysha said that Jessica gave them some Gloria Trevi and Jennifer Lopez, things that have a Latin flavour. And apparently Jimbo suggested Milkshake by Khalees for herself to represent her drag, and Naysha said that she had some tea about this which she would spill later. They then talked about the choreography rehearsal for this week, and they said that it was odd that the eliminated queens were sitting on the side of the stage watching. And Naysha said we would find out later, but she also thinks that the show made the queens sit to the side because it's a, quote, tactic to make these hoes even more nervous. And Denali said that all the eliminated queens this season were kept in the hotel for a long time, and she asked Naysha if they had Netflix in the hotel because on season 13 they didn't. Naysha then spilt some behind the scenes tea and said that the queens did have access to a few different streaming services such as Netflix and Hulu, but you were only allowed access to one app per day, and there was a remote control with a password on it that the producers controlled. But apparently, Candy one time saw the producers putting in the code and she figured out what the code was, and she shared the code with all of the queens so that they could secretly access the other apps such as porn or YouTube. Naysha said that one of the queens, but she can't remember who, complained to the producers that Candy had the code and she was, quote, cheating because she's using it for comedy and she's getting bleep off the internet. And so the producers then changed the passcode and made sure the queens didn't know what it was and removed their access so that they could only use one app per day. Caramel then guessed that it was either Alexis or Heidi that told on Candy. And Naysha said, quote, Heidi, don't come for me, but I think it is Heidi actually. I think it was. Heidi, don't come for me, just correct me. And everyone laughed. Naysha also said she had another bit of tea and said that one of the factors why Candy decided to keep Jimbo over Jessica is because the queens knew that they would be doing a final performance against each other for the crown. And although Candy is friends with Jimbo, which is partly why she kept her, the other reason was because Candy felt like she had a better chance of beating Jimbo in a performance number rather than Jessica. But Naysha did make it clear that she had told Candy that she was going to spill this tea and it's all fine. They also said that even if Candy had chosen to eliminate Jimbo, the producers would have probably created some kind of twist to keep Jimbo, such as making it a top 3 rather than a top 2, and everyone agreed. Naysha also shared a fun backstage story and said that in the episode, when the queens were all getting ready for the final runway this episode, there was a bit where all the queens joined hands. And Naysha said that they actually had to film that 3 times in the end because there were, quote, too many chefs in the kitchen and people kept making too many suggestions. So in the end, production just told Kahana to lead that moment and everyone laughed. They then moved on and they watched Jimbo and Candy's performances, and when asked what they thought of the performances, Mo said that they were, quote, trash, and people gasped and laughed. Mo then said that when she thinks of solo numbers, she thinks of the season 8 finalists, Bob, Kimchi and Naomi, whose songs were written about them and their drag. But for Candy and Jimbo, the songs just didn't really seem to reflect their drag in any way. Denali then shared a story about Willow Pill's performance at the season 14 finale, and her song was called I Hate People. And Denali said that sometimes the show picks up on one random thing that you said at the beginning of the season, and then they use that to create the song, even though it probably doesn't reflect that queen's personality. And Denali implied as though that's how Willow felt about her song at the season 14 finale. They then talked more about the choreography of the final performances this week, and Naysha said that they made Jimbo and Candy do the performances multiple times, and particularly Candy was doing it over and over. And Naysha said that in her opinion, the producers wanted Candy to, quote, mess up, and at one point they said to Candy, quote, okay, let's have fun with it now. And Naysha said, quote, Candy's not stupid and she knows how to play this game. And Candy just kept doing the performance as perfectly as she had been doing it up until then, implying that production wanted Candy to somehow mess it up so that they could use that in the edit. Naysha then said that Candy, quote, had a little slip at one point during the rehearsal and sprained her ankle, but Candy just worked through the pain. And then apparently in the confessionals, they asked Candy about her sprained ankle, and Naysha implied that Candy knew that the producers would try and use that in the edit. So Candy just completely denied it and just said, quote, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And everyone in the audience laughed. And Naysha said that Candy is so good at playing the game and wouldn't give the producers what they wanted, and because Candy just denied it, they couldn't include it in the episode because they had no material to work with. Naysha then spilled some major tea about the final lip sync between Jimbo and Candy, and Denali also said that she had heard this story too. According to Naysha, the lip sync song, which was Do You Wanna Funk by Sylvester and Patrick Cowley, had been decided a long time before the finale episode, and the queens had been preparing for that song. But apparently when the queens were in the workroom, a producer named Mandy came up to Jimbo and Candy and said that they had decided to change the final lip sync to Milkshake by Khalees. And you may remember that earlier, Naysha had said that that was one of the songs that Jimbo had given for inspiration for her finale performance, so the producers knew that Jimbo would perform that song well. And apparently Candy also knew that Jimbo had given that song to the producers, and so Candy realised that the producers were trying to give Jimbo an advantage in the final lip sync. And then Candy had something in her hand and threw it down and said, quote, call my mother, at the top of her lungs, and Candy said that she was going home, and she told the producers to call her mother to come and pick her up from set. Naysha said, quote, she was going home, F the show, F everybody, you wanna crown Jimbo, then you effing crown Jimbo, but you ain't gonna have a finale, F you. And Candy repeated that she was going home and asked production to give her phone back. And all the other queens were in the workroom, but they didn't know what was going on, and Candy then explained what was going on. And apparently Jimbo was just going, quote, what's going on, with a smile on her face, implying that Jimbo was being a bit oblivious to what was happening. But Naysha said that Candy started talking to Naysha in Spanish and called Jimbo, quote, stupid in Spanish, and said that Jimbo definitely did know what was going on, but she was just playing dumb. Caramel then asked how long this lasted between Candy and the producers, and Naysha said, quote, oh, 2 seconds. As soon as Candy popped off, you have to understand, she's saying she's gonna leave, you're no longer gonna have a final episode. Apparently the producer Mandy then came back and said that she was sorry and she, quote, jumped the gun, I made a mistake, and Naysha said Mandy came up with an excuse. And Naysha said, quote, "They tried to pull the stunt on Candy, and Candy, the producer, said, quote, 'No, it ain't happening.' And they then changed the lip sync song back to the original song." And Naysha said, quote, "Kudos for Candy for not letting anyone F with her." Mo then said that she would have done the exact same thing. And Denali then said, quote, "At least try and make it look like it's fair." And Denali said, quote, "That's not the first time she's done something like that." And it's assumed that by she, Denali was referring to Mandy the producer, but it wasn't made clear. And Denali mentioned Jinx and Detox on season 5. For anyone who doesn't know, I've mentioned this before in other videos, but Detox and Jinx have both confirmed that for their lip sync on season 5, the song was switched at the last minute to Malambo number 1. And apparently Jinx had been singing that song all season, and the producers knew that she loved that song, and Detox has said that they switched the song to favour Jinx and keep her in the competition. Anyway, Denali also said that she's glad to hear that the queens are standing up for themselves, because without the queens there would be no show. And Denali said that Candy had taught her so much about standing up for herself, and there were so many times on season 13 when Denali didn't stand up for herself and she wishes that she had, but she didn't go into any detail about it. They then got to the moment in the episode when Jimbo won All Stars 8 and everyone stood up and clapped for Jimbo. And they also clapped for Lala Ree, who won the Fame Games. And Naysha said congrats to Jimbo and Lala, and Naysha also shared that they had to do 10 different crownings for the Fame Games because they didn't know who was going to win back when they filmed the season. And so each queen had to film themselves winning the Fame Games. And Naysha joked that the queens got really tired of clapping and cheering for each queen by the end. And Naysha said that she knew that she wasn't going to win the Fame Games because it was a, quote, popularity contest, and many of the queens have a way bigger following on social media than other queens. And Naysha said that she even said that exact thing to a group of producers, but they all denied that that was true. So when Naysha had to film herself winning the Fame Games, apparently she just goofed around and did a, quote, stupid ass walk with the scepter in her hand because she knew that she wasn't going to win, and she described it as, quote, so awkward. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's Recap for All Stars 8 episode 12, which was the season finale. What did you think of All Stars 8? And what has been your favourite moment from the Roscoe's Recaps for this season? Let me know in the comments. Also, just in case you haven't seen, I recently launched a new YouTube channel called What the Mat, and it's where I talk about gossip, secrets and drama from other TV shows and movies, not just Drag Race, such as The Real Housewives, Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just to name a few examples. So please could you all just go and check out my new channel and subscribe, as it would really help me out. I'll put a link in the description. Please make sure you like, comment and share this video as it really helps support my channel. And of course, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!